Welcome to Armchair Expert. I'm Dan Shepard. I'm joined by Minnie Padman. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
You're fresh off the boat from Michigan. You went without me. I feel double-crossed.
I know. I wanted you to be there. I drove by a Meijer.
I bet you did.
I did.
Boy, we went there a couple thousand times on that trip. We were there every 15 minutes.
I know.
Today, we have one of my favorite comedians. He's
so funny.
So dang likable. I've had the great pleasure of acting in one episode of television with him on his own TV show. Of course, he's also partners with our heartthrob, McElhenney.
Robert.
Charlie Day. He's an actor, a screenwriter, a producer, and a director. He, of course, is in and created It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's in the Lego Movie, a couple of those Horrible Bosses films, Pacific Rim, and Fist Fight with Ice Cube.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a new movie that he wrote, directed, and starred in called El Tonto, which will be released shortly.
At some point, it will be released, and you should see it.
Look for it, El Tonto. So please enjoy the ever-entertaining and interesting Charlie Day.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
I'm going to take my hat off because it's a sort of a warm hat for a hot day.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mistake.
So, Charlie, you're
Pretty
I think one of the few guests. In fact, we had our first guest that walked over. In fact, Friday, weirdly, he walked and got lost, and then we had to find him.
Good for him for getting lost. In this day and age of technology, too. It takes a special kind of defiance to not... It's impossible to get lost now, right?
It really is. You have to make a decision to get lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I even thought about that, too, walking down here. I was like, maybe I'll walk with no phone. Yeah, I saw on the map where you are. I know where I live.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this will be easy. And then I thought, no, that's too...
It's
I
risky.
can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. The big earthquake hits. I don't have my phone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You might witness a crime.
Yeah, there you go.
Have you witnessed any crime in our neighborhood?
I'm not, but I am super non-observant. So
Okay.
Oh no, that's not true. I got woken up one morning. It's like 4 a.m, and I'm hearing screams, the type of screams I've not heard before. Where I'm like, that's a murder. That's what a murder sounds like.
Right.
You know, like, oh my God, help me, shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I have a baseball bat in my room, which I just grabbed.
Sure, to protect your family.
Yeah. I also have 3 shotguns, but I grabbed the baseball.
Of course.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going out there. And my wife's like, hang on a second. Don't be crazy. You
Right.
don't know what it is. You know, I'm like, all right, you're right. I mean, I wouldn't even know what direction to run. I'm just going to run around the neighborhood in my pajamas with a baseball bat because someone's screaming, help me. That doesn't make sense. So then we kept listening to the fight. And it became clear the fighting went from someone's being murdered to someone has been disgraced. Where all of a sudden it was like, and all that over your nails. I'm like, all right, so this has something to do with a fingernail dispute.
Sure.
And
There's
then
a million of those.
And then we kind of catch a peek of them from our window. It was a pimp and hoe situation.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, up in the hill.
What the fuck were they doing up in the hills?
I don't know. Some expensive John, I think I called them.
Oh,
up.
you
They
think
kicked them out of the house.
leaving the house?
Leaving the house. And there was a
Okay.
big dispute. At one point, you know those little neighborhood patrol cars that are all around here?
Yeah, the little yellow numbers.
Yeah, caught up to them, was having a conversation, and you could hear the guy say, "What's your name?" And the woman says, "Carla," and then the pimp says, "Not really, though." And then I think she had to kind of switch gears and be like, "All right, it's Frederick," something like that.
You know, I mean, this is maybe too obvious of a question, but why is it that dynamic just seems so rife for conflict? The pimp hooker relationship, it's going exactly how I'd expect it to go.
Yeah, I think anytime someone is doing sexual acts against their will,
Yeah. It seems pretty easy
It's
to
fertile
see.
ground.
there's some inherent conflict in that job arrangement.
You're right. But also, you know, if you just transplant the whole thing onto our career, like let's say you and McElhenney, I'm pronouncing his name correctly because he corrected me.
Did he correct you?
He did. I've been saying McElhenney, like I'm adding, like it's like,
I listened to your guys' post. I caught
okay.
that.
Okay,
Caught
right.
that.
And he was gracious enough to say, like, I love you and I appreciate the mentions, but it's Mac. And he explained the difference between Mac.
A Mick and a Mac. And
Yeah, which I was completely oblivious to all this.
he gets pretty pissed off, too, because nobody can pronounce and or spell his name.
And now it's all of our faults.
Yeah.
But good for him. You know, he wants me to say it right. So McElhenney, anyways.
Wait, what's the difference between Mac and Mick? You said there's
Okay,
a big
I'm sure he's told me, but I deleted all those files.
you know what? It's worth 5 seconds for me to look it up because it's a real education.
While you're looking it up, I'll sidebar into his wife, Caitlin. Did she ever tell you the time about at Starbucks where, they put your name on the cup?
Yeah.
And she got back the cup and said catfish.
No.
What?
And it was like, how do you translate Caitlin to catfish? So, catfish is great. So that's her nickname on set. Sometimes we call her catfish.
Okay, here we go. I forgot to tell you that I'm very flattered by your mentioning of me on the show from time to time, but you're pronouncing my name wrong. I thought of emailing Monica for her to cover it on the fact check, but this was easier. It's pronounced McElhenney, not Mickelhenny. It's a tricky one, but for future reference, when dealing with a Scottish or Irish person, MC followed by a vowel is Mac. MC followed by a consonant is Mick. Like McDonald's versus John McEnroe.
Oh, cool.
I mean, that was a real breakthrough for me. No one has explained that to me. Do you know this about the consonant? You must from working with him for so long.
No, and I'm staring right at you, and you're talking, and I'm already dropping all that information because it has very little practical use in my life. And by the way, though, McElhenney is one of those things that I know how to spell, but sometimes with Glenn, I'll just be like, wait, is it one N or is it two N?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think because Rob gets so hot about it, I got it down.
Yeah, you had to out of fear of retaliation.
Yeah, fair enough.
But you're right, Glenn. What the fuck is a second N doing on there? It did its job.
Every time I write it, it feels wrong.
It does.
This can't be right. I already wrote N. Are you supposed to say it for a while longer? Like Glenn.
Maybe his name is really Glenn, and
Glenn.
Anyways, back to my hooker analogy is
back to hookers.
You and McElhenney, you put some energy into a project. The ratings come out. It's a big rating, and you celebrate. It's generally good, right? It doesn't lead to a fight over one's nails. So if the proposed business is go to a house, perform a sexual act, get paid, and split, I feel like they should be in a celebratory phase. The ugly work's over, the backbreaking work's over, and now they got the money, and you would think the spirits would be high.
Well, like with Rob and I, like with Sonny, we're splitting our money kind of evenly. I'm not quite sure that the pimp and prostitute.
Great point.
I think there's some tension there.
And are you guys hurting each other violently and physically?
No.
Okay,
no,
yeah. So
not
that's
so
one
much.
big difference.
You don't call Rob
Psychologically,
daddy.
no. Is he the pimp? I think I'm the pimp.
Okay, you're the pimp.
Yeah.
Again, I just know him longer, and one of the things I admire about him is his rigid core. He knows his direction, and he's kind of impervious to outside input. I literally admire this about him. Like if someone makes a bad joke in front of him, he has no compulsion to fake laugh.
I brought this up to him the other day because it's the thing I hate about myself the most is that I realize that 50% of my conversations I have with people, every word I'm saying is just so that they feel okay. Like I see that they're coming in and they're coming at me with some awkward humor, and I'm just trying to land those planes for them, and then
Land those planes for them.
and then because I'm trying to do that, I'm now saying stupid shit and trying to dig my way out of a hole. And he does not care. He can just take it in and...
Again, it's the confidence I admire. If that person's upset that I didn't laugh at their bad joke, that's for them to evaluate. It's nothing about me. It's just it seems like a healthy position.
I have benefited more than anyone else, I think, in this town from the way that guy thinks and his singular drive about stuff. And I mean, thank God he was like, we have to make the show and we have to keep making it. And... I kind of was always like, yeah, we could do this, could do that. But he just was so driven about stuff.
Well, that would make him the pimp in this scenario. Like you're evaluating maybe quitting or retiring. And he's like, no, we're going to keep this show on the road.
Yeah. But I get so much work without him. No problem.
Yeah.
I feel like he needs me. So I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
Well, no, but your point is well taken. You guys are divvying up that money 3 ways or however you do it.
Yeah.
And the pimp is definitely getting like 99% of that and paying for some expenses. But again, why is he mad?
Why is he mad?
It sounds like in this thing you observed, he was hot under the collar about them nails.
I think the prostitute was mad.
Oh, she was mad.
Her nails got broken or whatever it was, and she was fucking pissed off.
Sure.
Look, I don't know. Somebody might have actually been getting hurt. It's hard to know.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the terrifying thing that turned benign.
So I had a very similar thing happen. I lived in this one-bedroom apartment for 10 years in Santa Monica early on, and I lived in this apartment. There was maybe 13 other apartments. And I knew one of the gals one stairwell over. I knew her kind of well. And then I heard screaming, same thing, blood-curdling screaming. It's like 6 p.m. at night. I'm in there with my girlfriend. And I hear her say, no, please, no. And I just hear, you fucking cunt. And then I hear furniture smashing. So I'm thinking, she might be getting killed. So I left. I ran up the stairwell, and I'm yelling as I go up, I'm calling the cops. Like, I'm trying to give a lot of warning, like, back off, whatever's going on. And I get to the top of the stairwell, and I knock at the door, and she opens the door. And right as I see her, I see this guy running at me, and he is big. And he looks like an English soccer hooligan, like shaved head, 220, 6'2", and he's in a full sprint at me. He comes into the landing. We kind of lock up. He throws me into this fire extinguisher thing. The glass breaks. And all I'm thinking the whole time is, oh, my God, we're going to tumble down the stairway. You know, we're getting each other in holds, and we're going to fall down the stairway. And then in that time, she shut the door and locked it. And now I'm like, my job's over. So I'm trying to get extracted from this. I break free. I run down the steps. And he's just standing at the top steps, and he starts knocking on the door. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, the cops are on their way, blah, blah. Walk back to my stairwell, and he now walks down, and then he crosses, and my girlfriend Bree's on the phone with the police, and as he walks by, he goes, you wouldn't understand, she's a fucking cunt, and then just walked off into the streets. It was I call it a blind date with violence. Like, I just knocked on the door.
Dabble.
God knows what's on the other side.
You know, you're lucky you didn't get shot, though. It's funny, not to go too much into the Rob stuff, but I was listening to you guys' podcast and talking so much about that attraction to violence, really.
Yes, masculinity and violence and defining yourself.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. But, you know, I had a friend of mine's father in Rhode Island. He's a carpenter, he's a Portuguese guy, he's tough as nails, greatest guy on the planet. We all looked up to him. Scary dad, though. You know, the kind of dad that was a little bit scary.
Sure.
And we had a run-in with some kids once where basically like a windshield of a car got smashed and a BB gun got pulled on somebody. And there was a whole sort of fiasco, and the parents got involved. And
what age?
I was probably 16, which means my buddies were 15, which means the youngest guy in the car was probably 14 or 13.
Okay, great.
So, but my buddy's dad put it really great. You know, all the parents had talks with us about, you can't be doing this, you can't be doing that. And I had to pay for the windshield because it was my dad's car, which cost me $499.40. I was painting houses all summer trying to
That's a big hit at 16.
Yeah.
$500.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
1985 Honda Accord. But Peach Pettit pulls us in the room and just looks at us, and he goes, you don't pull a BB gun on a guy because he could have a real fucking gun. And he's just screaming at us. But then it kind of hit me from then on. I was like, right, what fucking business do I think I have getting in any kind of scuffle with anybody? Not that I should anyway, because I'm like 3 feet tall, but like, what if a guy's got a gun? And it's completely crazy.
You're 100% right, and Rob and I are 100% wrong. The utopia that I would dream of has no one in it swinging at anyone. So I just recognize it's completely guerrilla behavior. It's fucking stupid, no way to handle anything.
Yeah.
And also, to your point, this really occurred to us watching Wild Wild Country. Did you see that documentary about the Rajneeshis in Oregon? So, you know, it starts out so simple. They just want to go, like, whatever, dance and frolic naked. And then just the way that the battle escalates with the town. And then it gets to a county level. And then it gets to a state level. And now there's a fucking hotel being bombed. And there's a food court being poisoned. And I was just watching that going like, oh, right, in life, you kind of have a choice to either escalate or de-escalate. There's really no neutral position to take on it. It's like either you can actively kind of try to deflate everything, or you can go up, ratchet it up, and then they'll ratchet it up, and it's kind of endless. So I see the futility in it, for sure.
But even if you're trying to deflate something, like in the case where you hear the screaming and you go upstairs, like this guy could be like, oh, I'm going to shoot my wife. I just shot her. Great. Now she's dead. And this guy opens the door. Well, now I got a witness. I got to shoot this guy too.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, I will say if I had heard a gunshot, I probably would have turned around and told Bree nothing's going on.
Right. Yeah, I'm calling the police. I'm calling the police. I'm calling them from a distance. I'm not calling them.
I'm in my car driving away. Yeah. Okay, so you just mentioned Rhode Island. You were born in the Bronx.
I was.
And what age did you guys relocate to Rhode Island?
Oh, super young. I think I was 2.
So you're a Rhode Islander or whatever you call it. Why is it RHODES and not ROAD? Is it an English thing? Is like Rhodes Scholar? Is it connected to that? Why is it Rhode Island, but it's...
It's something I should absolutely know, and most certainly was taught. But you know, I've thought about this too. Listening to your podcast, I'm like, man, I think I'm gonna be the worst guest ever because I can't remember anything.
No.
I don't remember a thing.
My wife was one of our best guests, and she does not remember yesterday. We have taken full vacations for 10 days. She doesn't know we've been to that state.
Yeah, I have
all
that
the
same
time.
dilemma.
You do. Okay.
Living in the now, man.
Good for you. I think it's a good way to be. You certainly have an aura of happiness that I don't know if the whole thing's a facade, but you've always impressed me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think look, I wouldn't say I'm overly happy or psychotically happy.
Maniacally happy.
Yeah, maniacally happy. No, and I can get depressed or jealous or angry like anyone else, but I think maybe my sort of going state is
It's pretty chill.
one of acceptance, I think.
Oh, that's great.
I think when you grow up super tiny and covered in freckles and you're like, I can either fight against this or I could just embrace it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd probably have to ask Robert Glenn, who see me on a daily basis, and they'd be like, no, he's the most miserable son of a bitch
Yeah.
you ever met. you
We
know?
certainly all know our friends better than we know
Yeah.
ourselves, right? So mom was a piano teacher.
Yep.
Yes, Mary.
Yeah, she was like a kindergarten through 8th grade school music teacher.
Okay, and dad was a professor in music history.
Yeah,
Yes?
Yeah.
So music has got to be paramount in the house. Did they stay married?
yeah,
Oh, they did?
yeah,
Okay, so you grew up in a nuclear family, both of them musicians or obsessed with music.
yep,
And your sister, who's older,
yes,
did she play music?
she did. Actually, all three of them have their PhDs in musicology.
Oh, you're kidding.
So, yeah, my parents met in grad school at Columbia where they were getting their doctorates in music.
Wow.
So super kind of whatever word you guys were looking at before, eduphiles or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Unifile?
Yeah, uniphiles.
Yeah. We include Columbia in the Unifile.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Good school. And then my sister got her degree as well too. But yeah, they're all big, smart music family. And I just didn't want to go into it because I was like, you guys, we have no money.
Oh,
There's no what life is this?
right.
I want the sneakers my buddies
Yeah.
have.
I can listen to the same albums in a nicer house.
Yeah. It was more like they know everything about Beethoven and
Classical
that
stuff.
kind of stuff than
Yeah, what was being played in the household?
nothing.
Rip.
Nothing. We didn't even have a car radio. So when they bought that Honda Accord that I later smashed the windshield, they opted for no radio. So
Radio delete option. They
Yeah.
saved $190.
They saved $190. So there was a little like plastic plate there that said Honda.
The only reason this makes sense to me is that I'm going to guess that in your household, you're a comedian. You're by trade, you're a comedian. I doubt you watch much comedy on TV.
No, it's true. I don't watch a ton of comedy. I mean,
Yeah, because you make it.
yeah, because you make it. And
Yeah.
you're
If you make sausage, you probably don't eat a ton of sausage, maybe.
No, I don't. Do you guys don't really eat it,
No,
right?
very
No.
little. In fact, it has to be more of a serialized emotional story.
Sure.
Packaged as a comedy. Master of None. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Watch that. Fleabag. Have you watched Fleabag?
No, my wife watched it and I got to watch it. But what
It's
happens is, and you have this
unbelievable.
with Kristen, if your wife goes off and watches something without you, then I'm like, well, when am I supposed to watch it?
Yeah, totally.
Because we watch stuff together.
Yeah, you get an hour and a half a night together, right, to maintain this whole thing.
I'll tell you what I did watch and was blown away by was Pen 15.
We haven't watched. I haven't watched that yet, but I would really like to. I heard it's
I was
unbelievable.
blown away by it. And I kind of went in, like all things I go into a little bit like, what is this going to
A
be?
little cynical. Yeah.
Little cynical.
Sure.
And then, you're watching it for the first 10 minutes and the girls are playing. They're older and you're like, okay, that's sort of like a gimmick.
Yeah.
The gimmick wears off immediately and then you're completely caught up in their lives. And it's both hysterical, but then I don't know why I'm here plugging Pen.
No, you should.
Yeah.
I wrote them both like on Instagram to be like this, and I never do that.
Oh, you don't?
I never have done
great.
that. I probably should, but I never do.
Uh-huh.
Just to be like, this is you guys well done.
Yeah. And did they respond?
They did, and I felt like a junior high school kid myself, having passed a note to a girl like, what did I do?
No,
what
I
have I
love
done? I'm
that.
exposed.
I've had
that's
so
so
many
nice.
good experiences doing that.
I think I'm going to start doing.
I almost every time I like something, I try to like say something publicly about it, and then I do always try to send it to the people who made it, and then I'd say half the time they've responded in kind.
That's great.
Yeah, I like it.
But the one person who did that to me, and now you don't want to say his name out loud in public though, but was Louis
C.K.
Yeah, he sent me a really nice email after watching Pacific Rim, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like the nicest email, not asking her for anything. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if his pants were on when he was typing it.
Yeah. How could you know? Okay, but back to Rhode Island. So you had to play, right? You learned to play violin at 3?
No.
That's a bullshit.
That's bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I did have lessons, I think at 3. I think at 3 or 4, they put a violin in my hand, and then they were like, nope, that's not going to work. I think they made a couple ambitious moves, like trying to start me early on that. I started school pretty young, so I ended up repeating the 2nd grade.
Because you have an early birthday or something, or
I
a
have
late
a
birthday?
February birthday, so I'm not even
That makes
like,
no sense.
Yeah, I'm not even
You should have been
on
the oldest kid in your class.
Exactly.
You should be in the NHL.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like 3 in kindergarten or something.
What? Oh,
4 in
geez.
kindergarten,
Oh,
5 in
geez.
1st grade. So I repeated the 2nd grade, which I think had a psychological dramatic effect on me.
Did
But
it? For real?
I think so. A
Yeah,
little
well,
bit.
because you're humiliated in front of your peers, right?
Or a little bit of the sense of like, oh, something is wrong with how I'm learning. And then I think you go into learning a little bit more trepidatiously after that. You're like, oh, something's up here,
Yes.
you know?
So if you even listen to 6 minutes of any episode of the podcast, you would have heard me say I was dyslexic and didn't learn
Yeah.
to read till 5th grade. I
Yeah.
still have a chip on my shoulder about it.
Yeah, and so do I. And it's funny because I listen to the podcast and I'm like, you're incredibly smart, you know? But
Well, thank you, but Einstein could come up from the grave and go, "You're fine. You're smart. Stop
right.
proving it to everyone." And I
Yeah.
still would be like, "No."
I had the same problem. And I think it's having, 2 parents who are so highly educated. And, I think I did struggle in school a little bit at times. They were, at a very young age, were constantly testing me also for dyslexia and stuff. But sadly, they were coming up negative. They're like, no, this kid is just lazy.
We got the
This kid,
the lab results
Yeah,
back, and
yeah,
it came back positive for laziness.
yeah, this kid, there's nothing wrong with him. He just really is sort of anti-learning. I think I was just a big daydreamer and still am. I think that's I have my head in the clouds always.
Well, and then this, what could be a chip on your shoulder, it's compounded by the career you've staked out for yourself, like me as well. I have also specialized in playing dipshits.
Yeah, well, I feel comfortable there because I think that's the psychological thing of like, well, and I've also played smart characters, but I do feel very comfortable sort of satirizing it.
Yes.
Leaning into it. And also, there's no humiliation in being called out on not actually being dumb. Right. So if you're playing a stupid character and then people say, wait a second, he's pretty smart. He's actually writing all this shit.
You're right.
You're fine. But if you're playing like a scientist and everyone says, yeah, he got like a
How's he?
250 on his SATs, then there's some humiliation there. But I don't know. I'm over it. I think I used to feel that way.
I think I've even seen in real life someone go on a talk show to promote a movie where they're basically playing a genius, and quickly into the talk show, you're like, oh, this person's not a genius. But they did play one convincingly.
Well, that means
Right.
they're an extra good actor.
It does,
So they
but you're
should-
right. There's a level of humiliation when
Yeah.
you've portrayed yourself as a genius.
Well, also, yeah, this business is crazy, and we're all guilty of it. Don't you think, to some degree, like if you think of Leonard Nimoy or someone, you're like, well, he's a super smart guy.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know. Is he? I mean,
Well,
probably, but probably not. He's just an actor.
I'm sure you've met many of your idols at this point.
Yeah, some.
And I would just have to say, if I had to say the majority or the average, was that they were not at all what I was expecting.
Really, you think?
I think very few people have delivered for me. I've met so many of my comedic heroes, and they are so depressed and dark and not fun and miserable.
Well,
and they're on
that's
top of the world.
Yeah, comedians, that's true. I never really wanted to be a comedian either.
You didn't?
It's a dark group.
Well, that
know?
kind of became obvious to me when I looked at what you did, which is interesting because I would not have, when I think of you, I would not go like, oh, I bet he did Summer Stock or whatever the thing is in Massachusetts.
yeah.
What is it called?
Yeah, the Williamstown theory.
Yeah, that's a pretty kind of, not to be like say hoity-toity, but it's kind of like an elevated,
Yeah, well, that's how I got my foot in the door, was getting into there. And then, you would audition, I guess, against kids who were in Juilliard and Yale and,
right.
sort of fancy actor kids. And fortunately, guys like myself and Jimmy Simpson kept getting these slots who didn't have these sort of Ivy League acting backgrounds. But the festival took itself so seriously that we, by proxy, took ourselves seriously.
Sure,
and said,
of course.
I'm going to be an actor. But at the same time, I was like, but please give me a commercial slinging cereal. Like, I'll take anything.
Yes.
But I couldn't get arrested in comedy. And I remember auditioning for, I think it was the movie Eurotrip. Do you remember Eurotrip?
Mhm,
Yes,
I do.
absolutely.
I remember the feedback in the room was, he's really interesting, but comedy's just not going to be his thing.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
Yeah.
But do you wonder now, like at that time, you probably took that as the letter of the God, like that came from Todd Phillips' mouth.
No,
But now that you've been behind the curtain, don't you think that went through a few rounds of telephone? And
Yeah, no, I think it was probably a junior casting assistant who was just like, and
Right.
I never even made it into the room with Todd Phillips. Like,
okay, right.
I barely got out of the hallway.
Right. So when we're not going to go into music, although I'm sure you would have been supported strongly if you had pursued that. But you do play instruments, right? You play many instruments.
Well, there was a time, I think around 18, 19 years old, I was trying to make the choice of like, do I like try to like write albums and, do like the Bob Dylan thing?
Yeah.
Or do I go into acting? And I just have much more fun with acting. And I always thought, well, I can always just play music
Right.
as a hobby. But,
it's hard to play in movies as a hobby.
Yeah, you can as a hobby.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I knew exactly what I wanted to do until I got to Williamstown, which was when I was starting to really think, okay, acting could be fun. And then seeing all the people there that weren't famous, like there were a lot of great famous, both Broadway and Hollywood actors that came through, but there were a lot of guys who were just sort of working equity actors.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, this guy is making a living doing this.
Yeah.
And he's not that good.
Right. Yeah. That's, by the way, it's counterintuitive, but one of the most helpful things you can see is someone succeeding at the thing you want to do that's not good at the thing.
Oh,
I find that way more empowering
absolutely.
than watching Leonardo DiCaprio at 12 being What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I'm like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah, that shuts you down because
Yes.
you're like, I'm also 12 and he's way ahead.
Yes.
And there's no catching up.
No,
There's
ever.
no catching up.
Yeah.
Ever. And my face is never going to get there too.
No?
I'm like, you know what? Like, no matter what happens, the genetics are not on my side.
No one's ever going to look at either of us and go, is that a beautiful woman or a beautiful man? I don't know. Let's get closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel, this is funny too, going back to the thing with you or Rob and like working out. I was giving him such grief for getting super ripped on Sunny because I was like, look, I'm all for it. I love how you do these transitions, but there's nothing funny about a super ripped guy. It's just not that funny.
Yeah.
And we've obviously, that's a lazy approach to it. We found a way to make it funny, but he was just so much funnier when he put on the 60 pounds. He was just hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because fat is funny, or it's because the audience can relate to your shortcomings.
Yes.
So I feel like there's such a danger, and I exercise, I go to the gym, but there's such a danger in getting super ripped if you want to be a funny guy. And
I've been warned by many of the greats, you can't be in good shape like that. Like I've been told explicitly.
It's bullshit though. Just do what you want to do in your
Well,
life.
I thought exactly. And then at a certain point, you're just like, I like being in shape.
Yeah.
I like working out and whatever. Maybe I won't fit into some box, but.
Right. Or maybe we'll relook at roles like, hey, you know what? Guys who don't look like supermodels can also be in good shape and we should represent them in film. Like maybe we will grow up to it. But I think it has more to do with how the audience feels, which is that they want to relate to you as if they know you, as if you're one of them. And most people don't have the time to be spending the 3 hours in gym every day
With a trainer and a nutritionist and all this stuff. Yeah.
to have these bodies that look ridiculous.
They're preposterous. No one can have them.
Yeah.
But for me, a lot of it's totally mental. But also, like Rob, I think, and he admitted this, which I admired, was he's like, at a certain point, he didn't know if he was in on the joke anymore.
Yeah.
Which I have definitely gotten. Like,
Right.
in my mind, at first, it was going to be really funny because this guy's shouldn't be a model, but he's got the body, blah, blah. And then at a certain point, I'm just so dedicated to getting in that shape. That's all I'm thinking about. I don't really care about anything else, and I'm no longer in on it.
Yeah, that's right. And really the point of doing it was how the season ended, which was that he had gone through a sort of physical and emotional transition and that he'd come out this, I guess, more well-rounded or whatever version of it is. But, and to Rob's credit, when he was pitching me that dance thing, I was like, okay, I mean, we can do it. And that episode was not working for the longest time. And even in script form, it was like, it's okay. It's just this thing. And then you come out and it's fine. And when we sort of, Rob and I occasionally will get stuck on something, we'll just lock ourselves in a room and kind of not argue like a contentious argument, but kind of argue,
Discourse.
I don't like this. This isn't quite working for me until we find this common ground, which always makes it better. And when we locked into that episode being about Danny, about Frank having a realization and an understanding for Mac, it just, personally, I think that's what made that whole thing work.
Well, I love that episode. It is so fucking good.
So give a little context.
Yes,
if
so
people haven't seen
Oh,
it.
Right. And now we couldn't say when Rob was talking, but
Yeah.
Rob's character, who has been closeted the whole show,
Right.
and there's plenty of Easter eggs along the way.
Right. Yeah.
He decides to finally come out to his dad, who's in prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he does this beautiful ballet, choreographed ballet dance, shirtless, with water getting thrown all over him, with an incredible ballerina who's in the scene, and then. And then DeVito's coming to accept. Mostly from DeVito, I remember the same episode where his face swelled up.
Yeah. Well,
I could not handle how funny that was.
that's what we kind of landed. Like that's what we were searching for. That wasn't in the original draft, and we're like, well, what does it need? And it needs to be funnier, right? You got to come up with a thing.
Yes.
And we thought, okay, what if he smashes his face? And he opens this old cut, and he's trying to constantly plug it up, and that becomes a metaphor for sort of lacking of acceptance and
holding in
you're holding
your poison.
in your poison, right?
Your truth
until you accept it and let it flow out. And God bless Mac Lanny though. Like I got to give him credit just for even thinking that the whole dance. Because he sticks these flags in the sand sometimes that I'm like, I don't know, man, but I'll run with you there.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't have the full plan, but he drags me along, and I like to think that I make him better through the process, but he's also making me so much better through the process.
Yeah.
And then when we get to the end of it, we get to look back on it and say, well, that's a special thing.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
And what is the physical, mechanical process of you and Rob writing? Glenn doesn't write, does he? It's just you two?
Glenn doesn't write in the way that we write, which is that Rob and I will have the story idea, and then we'll work with the writers to break it, and then the two of us will work on it, and then we'll bring Glenn in once we're done, and he'll do a pass, all three of us together.
Oh, cool.
And his insight is always great.
Because he's on the outside of it all.
Yeah.
At that point,
and he
right?
wasn't always that way, but the last 5-6 years, he kind of stepped out and stepped back in. Just because I think he'd be the first to tell you, he's not a writer. It's not what he...
Right.
But he actually, I think he's a great writer. He always has a perspective on it that either Rob and I have missed that I always think makes the episodes better. But usually the process is, let's say we've taken an episode idea, and I can only think of old ones right now. But, Rob wants to do one thing, I want to do another. We kind of take the room and we beat those episodes out. And then we sometimes assign a writer to go write the draft. But really what ends up happening is Rob and I usually sit through every draft and
on a computer.
Sometimes
making changes.
This season we threw out a lot of drafts and just started from scratch. The two of us said, okay, what does this need to be?
Right.
And lock ourselves in a room. And
who's typing?
we take turns.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you
We split the typing.
okay? And you've written a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And do you prefer to write with somebody?
I prefer to write with somebody, only because I get stuck on my own. And,
Right.
Also because it's just lonely to write on your own.
Yeah, it's miserable.
The doing is the life, not the product. So
Right.
So that when you're writing with someone, that process is good. But I like to write with someone for a while and then be left alone to write for myself for a few hours, then come back and write some more. I don't know. Every single one's different.
Right. Okay, so really quick, back to, you go to college and then you got into acting then. And then did you move to New York? Is that what you did?
Uh-huh.
Right when you graduated?
Yeah, just went straight there.
And you were on an episode of Law and Order.
I did get on an episode of Law and Order, yeah.
And wasn't Rob also on an episode of Law and Order?
He was.
I just think it's a weird thing to have in common.
Yeah. Well, no, because everyone was on an episode of Law and Order.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
When you were in New York, that was one of the few things. And you would go in, if you had an agent and you were in your 20s or whatever, and you were auditioning in New York City, Law and Order was just something that always needed a guy moving boxes. They are going to come up nonstop.
Right.
I remember actually going in for commercials too, and I remember being in with the Verizon, the guy who does the Verizon thing?
Yeah.
remember-
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I remember being with him when he had just got that. And he was like, I just got a call that, like just got a call
Oh, wow.
that I'd gotten this Verizon commercial. It's going to be a big campaign. And I remember thinking, man, I don't want to do that. Because I had this sort of like mindset of like, well, I mean, I got to do some commercials to make the money, but I don't want to be stuck as like the Verizon guy.
Yes.
But I'm sure he doesn't give a shit. He did great on that. I did a direct TV commercial, I think, a few years ago, and it was the greatest thing. I worked for like a week,
Yeah.
and to be blunt, made as much money as I would have had to write and edit and act in 20 episodes of Sunny to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I still had some holdover feelings from that time. I was a little bit embarrassed doing it.
Uh-huh.
And at the time I was working with John Malkovich on something, and I saw him, and he said, like, how was your weekend and that whole thing, and I said, pretty good. I slummed it a little bit. I did a commercial, right? And he looks at me and he kind of nods. He goes, And so I ask him, I say, have you ever done any commercials? And he looks at me again and he goes, I've done hundreds of them. And I told him that I like sold my soul, and he goes, you don't sell your soul, you rent it. I'm like, all right, that's great. And that, I feel like he gave me like a blank check, because to me that he was like, that's what an actor's actor is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Steppenwolf, the whole thing. I idolize the guy. He's the greatest. So he just gave me a blank check to really
The reins were off.
pour myself out. It was great. I don't know when and how it changed, but it did change. Now it's
Well,
totally
Brad
fine.
Pitt was in that Heineken commercial. I'll never forget that. I'm like, wow, Brad.
It must have been.
fucking Pitt.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Brad.
Yes, you opened
You
up the
kicked down the doors for those of
For
us
us
who
to
could
make
use the
easy
additional
money.
income. We could use the easy money.
So you guys were kind of put on a blind date, right? You were arranged to meet each other, you, Glenn, and Rob.
You know what? I met Rob on an airplane. We were both being flown out to test for a pilot. So it was like a Fox pilot. I think it was called Mather House or Mather House Rule. No, Mather House. And it was like college kids in college, or whatever the plot was.
I'm trying to get laid, I would imagine.
Yeah, trying to get laid, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Rob and I were both testing for the same role.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think of like the crazy college guy. And I was like, I got this, dude. He ain't gonna get it over me. But we just like, said hi on the plane. I think he gave me a lift to the audition. I was such a bum and a mooch. I was like, hey, man, can you give me a ride? To the, he like rented a car and shit. I'm like, oh, nice, man. Good. You mind giving me a lift
You
over
rented
there?
a car.
Yeah. But we just hit it off there. So we became friends on that.
Oh, based off of that.
And then Glenn also, I'd met him like in the New York auditioning circuit. I think Rob knew him first. And I don't know. I have a vague memory of meeting him in the lobby of like auditioning for Tuck Everlasting or some crazy movie.
Uh-huh.
And we just kind of all clicked.
Yeah. So the model that you guys started with at FX was basically, if I understand it correctly, you guys are going to make this show for $0 and we're going to pay you $0 to be in it, but we're going to give you some ownership. We're going to give you a lot of ownership of this show.
Yeah.
Which is unconventional at that time. That wasn't like what anyone was aiming for per se.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get paid anything in the beginning.
Right. So when that was happening, were you said you didn't want to go into music because you didn't want to be broke, but was money something that you coveted or aspired to have desperately?
Sure. Well, I mean, sure.
Like on 0 to 10. I'll just tell you, I'm a 10. I was obsessed with money. I had to get it. I wanted it growing up.
No, 0.
0.
I mean, no. That's not right. Maybe like 3s and 4s. I knew I needed it.
Right.
I knew I needed it to survive. But man, I was so lucky from the time I had an agent after coming out of Williamstown, being seen up there and getting an agent. I worked. I did commercials. I was the voice of the independent film channel. So anytime you heard like coming up next on IFC.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I would get these fucking checks from that thing. McElhenney hated me because he was still waiting tables, and he would come to my apartment, which, by the way, was on this street.
It was?
Yeah, I lived with Jimmy Simpson, the actor.
Uh-huh.
That's where we shot the pilot of Sunny. The
no
original home
shit.
movie one. I actually was walking down here thinking of a funny story from that place where I one time went into the elevator was such a sketchy thing where the light's always flickering. It's like janky elevator. And the door opens. There's a guy in there holding a hacksaw, His glasses are like half off because they're missing one of the arms. He's breathing heavy. He's got a wife beater and like a hairy, like ape body. And he goes, "Get in." And like a lamb to the slaughter, I step into the elevator and watch as the doors shut me and just wait for this 300-pound man to just hack me to pieces. And instead, what he does is he goes, "I'm the new superintendent of the building." I'm like, "Oh, thank God." And he goes, "I've noticed that you're in the Screen Actors Guild."
What?
I'm like,
How did he notice?
He's been reading he's been checking my mail. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, in the guild. And he's like, "I got a screenplay for you."
Oh.
It gave me a screenplay, which was unreadable. I mean, he could barely form a sentence, never mind like a 3-act structure. But
Sure.
But anyway, that's a little sidebar, that great building down there. But I was so fortunate that between the commercials and the independent film channel, I was making money.
Yeah.
And I was the kind of guy that if I had $3,000 in the bank, I was like, I am the richest man alive. So I always felt as though
that's a great disposition.
Yeah, I was never like striving for more. I just didn't want to lose it. So I wasn't blowing it on flat screen TVs. I was like, I have $3,000. I can live on this forever.
Yes.
You know, the stupid thoughts like that. And then so Rob would come over and he would see my pile of IFC checks on my keyboard and he's like, "Come on, man. Just go to the bank." I'm like, "I got to walk all the way down to the bank to cash. I'll get around to
I got plenty of time. I got $3,000 to live off of.
Yeah, so I wasn't driven by money. I was driven by wanting to be someone great, make something great, make great things.
Yeah.
Be someone that someone said, "Oh, now that's a great actor or that's a great writer." That's what drove me. Which sadly, I think, is I just desperately wanted someone to love and approve me, like all actors. But
yeah, of course, all humans.
And then later, it became money when I actually started to make money. Where I was like, "Oh, now money's good."
Right. Also, if you would have knocked on my door and said, "I'll buy this whole dream from you,"
you would have done
for $4 million.
I wouldn't have done it.
At 28, I still hadn't made a dime acting and been trying for 10 years. I would have been like, "Yeah, I should probably take that. Save money, I think."
No way, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe I would have. Yeah.
See, I think if someone had said, "You'll be able to afford like a modest house and a decent living, but people will love your work everywhere," that would have.
I would have taken that too. Yeah. But I had zero.
That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's a really good deal. So everything's set. You'll never have to worry about anything ever again, and everyone will love you. Okay. Yeah,
that's
I'm
what
in.
I'm going for. Do you feel like, looking back on your career, that mentality led you to do some jobs you wish you didn't do?
I've done things for free because I thought they were going to be great, and they were fucking terrible.
Sure.
And I've done things for money that turned out to be great. So I actually don't think there's a whole lot to glean from it for me.
I had a funny year last year where I did a few things like that, right? Where I did the commercial just for money, and it turned out to be fine. It was fun. I actually really loved the director on it. It was a lovely guy. And it was quick and easy. I did a sort of more commercial movie that was, I wasn't thrilled with the script, but I was like, I'll just do this. I did the sequel to the Pacific Rim, which the first one was Guillermo del Toro. That's why I wanted to be in it. The second one, he wasn't in it. And I thought, well, that's the whole thing. But I was like, I still love the character, and I like the story. And
also, you've already done it once.
And I did it once, and I was like, why not? And it was a great experience. I was in Australia with my family, and it was a great experience. And then I did Louis C.K.'s movie, which came out during all his sort of heat. And that was the one where I was like, oh, finally, like the awardsy crowd people are calling me up. Like I'm getting to work with John Malkovich and Edie Falco and Louis C.K., who I really admired. And, obviously that one turned out to be a disaster, not for me personally, but the movie itself.
Did it never come out?
I think they buried it. Because I'd done Louis' movie, I got to know Malkovich pretty well and Edie Falco. And I had asked them both if they would do this movie that I directed and wrote. And getting them in the movie, I think, really helped me secure the rest of the cast, because who doesn't want to be in the movie that Malkovich is in?
I don't need to read your script. You just call me and you're like, so who's in? These are the folks in. And I'm like, yeah, great.
And so weirdly, even Louis' movie was a good experience for me. I mean, removing myself from everything that went on with him. Yeah. It was still a good experience for me. So I learned, I don't know. What do I learn? What am I supposed to learn? I don't know what to learn.
Well, what I've learned is...
Can someone just tell me what I need to learn and what I need to know? Write it down on a little piece of paper. And
here's what I've deduced finally is the things that I hope that succeeded when they succeeded, the thing I thought that was coming next never came. And then the things I didn't want to do led to stuff that I ended up love doing. So what I've learned is that I have no barometer of what's good or bad for me to do.
Mm-hmm. I think there's like a certain, I don't know if it's a pressure or something that's attributed to us as performers, as if we have some sort of crystal ball to know how this piece of paper is going to, turn out, how it's going to be received in the world, whether or not anyone involved has a personal scandal in their life. That's like, how on earth are any of us supposed
What
to...
30-second commercial will they make?
Exactly. But the reality is we really just have one job to do, which is to do our work as best we can, as responsibly as we can. And the rest of it is completely out of our control. But it's very hard emotionally and psychologically because it's your name, it's your face.
Yeah.
You're being out there in the world and someone's saying...
your ego.
Yeah, like Dax Shepard, Charlie Day is the worst actor. You read that and you're like, oh, is it true? Like you can't remove yourself unless you're psychotic from a statement like that. So
right.
It's difficult, but there's no way for us that if we were really good, we would just be like, I just show up, I do the thing, then I go and I do another thing. Doing the thing is the experience, and then whatever you guys make of it, that's up to you. Who you're doing it with, I think, most importantly. Like, who am I working with? Like, what is that collaboration going to be?
Yes.
And am I going to learn and grow from this? I don't care where it goes or what it does, because I have no control over it.
Right. And again, I would argue on your deathbed, you're not going to be tallying up opening weekends. You're going to be thinking about the 3 months you made the movie. Yeah. Regardless of the outcome. It's like you won't even reflect on that.
I think one of the things that I'm most proud of the work that I've done were these 150 stupid home movies I made with Jimmy Simpson in that apartment down there and in New York City when we were roommates. We would just run around with this. He had a VHS camera, and then after he did the movie Loser with Amy Heckerling, he had enough money to buy a little digital camera. And we would shoot these dumbass little things pre-YouTube, so we didn't put them anywhere. We weren't trying to get ahead with them.
Right.
We were trying to make each other laugh. And we were trying to learn sort of how we performed on camera. So you saw what your face did, and in the tragic case of my voice, what my voice did. And you learned. Okay, this is what I look like. This is what I sound like. This is what works. This is what doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I had so much fun, and that was probably 2000. Running around with that guy and my friends making that stuff. It's why Robin Glenn came to me to say, "Hey, let's make It's Always Sunny because you make stuff. Let's make stuff together."
Yeah.
It's kind of the purest thing. And then you wish you could make your feature films that same way with that level of control. In a bubble. You don't have to get the rights to any of the music.
Yeah. Oh, that's the killer part.
Yeah, that's awful.
So back to Sunny really quick. So you go into it. I can't imagine your expectations were crazy high financially. No. You were just doing it because you really wanted to make stuff.
I just wanted an opportunity to really just to act. When FX said to us that you guys are going to run it, you're going to write it. I mean, I remember Rob writing, he was writing, I think, the episode where we get high on crack.
Uh-huh.
And I was taking the episode where we go to abortion rally to pick up girls. And I wrote my version of that script on a yellow legal pad at the Astro Diner in Silver Lake. So Dennis says this, and then under that line, and then later brought it to Rob where we typed it up. I didn't even own a computer till season 2.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
You would always write by hand.
I wasn't a really aspiring writer at all. I was just, I thought I was going to be, Dustin Hoffman or somebody. I was like, I'm going to be this great actor.
Right.
That's all. And that's what I was working towards.
Did it take you a while to own the lane you were in? Like to go, okay, I'm now comfortable doing this and I'm fine that I didn't do that? Or does that still nag at you?
No, because I don't think I really see the difference.
Yeah.
I think there is probably a big difference between It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and The Graduate, but not to me. To me, we are making The Graduate over and over and over again, or we are making the great next work that will be passed down and passed around. And I think that's just naivete. I think I was just happy to work. So,
right.
And then, The Horrible Bosses, I was thrilled to be in it. So it was just a great opportunity. Although, you know what? I almost passed on that movie, which would have been psychotic.
Why?
Because Ben Stiller was producing a movie called Gone in 30 Seconds or something.
Oh, uh-huh.
That Jesse Eisenberg did.
Right.
And I remember I went in and I read with Aziz a couple times because he was playing the other role. and I think Ruben Fleischer was directing it. And I thought it was a great script. And I really wanted that. I mean, so I was very fortunate that I didn't get that part. And that because Jesse was fine. He had a movie career. I needed one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Gone in 30 Seconds kind of came and went, but Horrible Bosses was a hit. So that was just dumb luck that I said, okay, I didn't get this. I'll go do that.
Yeah. So this will be anticlimactic because you already told me you're not obsessed with money. But I just want to know the moment where it occurred to you. At some point, FX has got to tell you, like, so guys, this show has actually generated a bunch of money and now you're going to get a big check.
Yeah.
Do you remember that moment? And was it hard to comprehend?
Yeah. I mean, I want to be clear. I'm not. I like money.
Yeah.
I'm not some great too cool for school guy.
Yeah.
I really like money. I just wasn't worrying about it like in my 20s because I had enough in the bank that I was like, hey, I can do commercials forever, whatever. But no, Rob and Glenn and I were very focused on how to get the money from FX that we felt we were worth. So we were sort of aggressive in, sort of how we were building our back end and how we were trying to get them to actually pay us. And,
Yeah. You were savvy.
We were savvy, although I still think all three of us still probably feel like,
you
like
left some on the table.
Big time.
Yeah.
Like, well, don't you have a feeling like if FX finally says, okay, we'll pay you $5, that means they had $25 that they were going to pay you?
Yeah, probably.
So I think you can't let that go. I mean, we had a pretty crappy meeting with our agent at one point where this was deep into the show, season 6, season 7, where he was breaking down some numbers for us. And he looked at the three of us in the eyes and he said, guys, in great success, if we keep this going, you could each walk away having made $1 million. And I know, like, to a lot of people at home, that sounds like a lot.
But in the TV world,
But in the TV world, and, if you're like, look, I've made the longest running sitcom in the history of television here. Yeah. It should be more than $1 million.
Yeah, north of $1 million, south of $1 billion.
Yeah, because Uncle Sam's taking half. I'm
Sure.
this isn't walk away money. Obviously, he said, you're crazy. We're going to make a lot more than that. I don't know what that guy was thinking in that meeting.
Yeah. Did you guys fire him ultimately as an agent?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. To this day, I'm confused about it. But we had a moment where we sort of stuck our foot down and said, we got to make at least this to feel as though we haven't wasted our lives.
Yes, I'm just saying, there was a point where at least you got paid some significant thing. Was that just like, oh, wow?
That was Rob and I and Glenn with a whiteboard doing a lot of calculations and arguing with our representatives about it should be this. And like, okay, then give us your packaging fee and all sorts of things. We were way ahead in the game, and that was the reason everyone's fired all the writers.
Yeah, you guys were one of the first to go white wine earth. Are you guys getting a package?
And by the way, I say we, but it's so Rob. I mean, look at me. Am I here talking about the packaging fee? Like I said, I'm like, no, I got a pile of checks on my keyboard.
You're kind of certain the agent said $1 million.
Well, you know what? I just think differently, and I think it's they want to break it down and look at the whiteboard, and I'm like, why are we doing this? Let's just pick the number that I could live if I never made another dime off of Sunny, but I made this.
Yes.
And let's say, okay, let's go that. And then when they say no, we'll say, well, we'll take half.
Right.
And, okay, a third then. That's fine.
I guess the only thing I'm building up to is there is a point in your life where you move out of wherever you're living and you get to go buy a house that you would really, really want. And you get to have some real security. And that's a pretty profound, cool, rare experience and moment, right?
It's a game changer.
I had to get married to someone to get that. So
well done. Well done. Doesn't matter how you get it.
But when Horrible Bosses comes out and it's a huge hit, the other thing I would think you'd have to be conscious of managing is the three of you guys start out as completely anonymous, and you guys get varying credit for the show itself as it becomes successful. And then when one guy goes off and becomes a movie star, I have to imagine, even if everyone's healthy, you're in Coldplay and you're sharing all the revenue. Still, that's a new dynamic for everyone to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, it's hard to know, I guess, when
you're the person,
you're the guy, people were cool about it. Look, the reason we've lasted as long as we've lasted is Rob and Glenn and Caitlin and Danny are all really good people. They have their feet on the ground. We fight all the time, but the fights are always about how can we make this show the best thing that it can be, and it's never been the sort of ego fights. And we Rob and I got in an argument this year over something, but I realized, and I said to him after, like, do you realize that we're both upset about the same thing? Is that we're trying to figure out how to properly manage time, but we're just saying it in two completely different ways. Like a married couple, you realize you're having the same point of view and found a way to argue about it. But
Yeah, right.
but they were good about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
They were very, very.
And you
good
didn't
about it.
have any kind of like guilt over it either. Like
A little bit, maybe,
yeah.
like a little concern of like, I hope no one holds this against me, but they didn't, or I certainly I didn't go around lording it over anybody. And,
Right.
No, it was pretty easy. So they watched me get some movies and then not get movies.
Was there a moment though when things were really going fantastic that you were like, I don't know that I want to have to carve out time for the show?
Sure.
Because this is a new adventure. Anything new is going to be fun. There's novelty in movies because you only do it for 3 months, and that's exciting. Because the one thing I just want to commend you all on is that, unlike many bands, you seem to have the wherewithal to go like, this is a very rare thing. This is a 1% of the time you get on a show that lasts even 7 seasons. And now that you guys are in 13 or 14 or 15 or something, to have the wherewithal to go like, no, let's not forget who brought us to the party, and let's keep this really magical thing alive, I think is really admirable.
I think for me, it's hard to say. Maybe if all of a sudden Paul Thomas Anderson and Scorsese and the directors that I like love and admire, my phone was ringing off the hook, maybe I would have had to say to the guys, look, I really want to go work with these people, and I got to go this direction, and I can't keep doing the show. But they didn't call.
Right.
There was always time to do the show. I was lucky enough to do a few movies, but I would be able to like schedule it with the guys with the off season, and we would figure it out. Sometimes there was a year or two where I ducked out of editing, maybe a month early or something like that. But we just found a way to make it work, and that was to their credit too. Which if I had something pop up, they weren't like, "Screw you, man, we're doing this at this time."
Yeah, that would have been the perfect time to make a logical case when really it was emotional. Like if I'm Rob or Glenn, like, well, no, we got to shoot at this day because we got to post it, and then we got to deliver. Instead, really just going like, I feel abandoned by you.
Yeah.
I feel like you're picking something over this special thing we have.
I think it probably was a two-way road. Like those guys were wonderful and generous enough to never make me feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was a good enough person to always
be available when you could be available.
Yeah, to make sure that I wasn't just turning my nose up to all the hard work that we'd done. And the other part of it is I love the show. And to this day, I'm more proud of the show than
any other thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm grateful to be in all those movies, but I don't like them as much as I like Sunny because it's my baby. It's like
of course,
with Rob and Glenn, but like
I would also argue the accomplishment is quantifiably a bigger accomplishment. If you can do 100+ episodes of something and keep it good.
Yeah.
That's
the other thing too. I mean, to bring it back to money a little bit, but that was still paying my bills more than anything else, which is that, because I own the show with the guys, there was more upside to, okay, so take 6-8 months, have total creative control of something.
Yeah.
Fans love you in the way that they really love you. They don't love you because, hey, I heard you have a great show, I love you. No, they love you because they watch the show. Otherwise, they don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah. Oh, I sent Rob a picture. I was at Islands, and there was a whole table full of like 6 people, 3 on each side, all wearing Sunny shirts.
Oh, that's crazy.
And they were just like rabid. That's all they were talking about. And I took a picture of them and sent it to him. Like, yeah, your guys' fans are real.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, and I think that goes back to, that is sort of what I wanted. I wanted to make a thing that people reacted to the way I react to like a Coen Brothers movie, which is that I couldn't form a sentence like I can't now if those guys walk in the room.
Right.
There's certain people creatively that I look up to.
But there's also something really fun about being into something that not everyone is into. Like to say you liked Seinfeld or Friends isn't really gonna like cut through 3 layers when you meet somebody.
Yeah.
But if you go like, oh, my favorite movies with Nell and I, you're like,
Right.
oh shit,
Right,
you know,
right,
there's just another layer of like connection.
Sure. I feel that way when someone has seen Idiocracy, which I love, and I love you in it. And
Thank you.
But
Very polarizing performance.
great. It's great. Terrifyingly great. Terrifying because I feel like that's a real guy, you know.
But in yes, I like the people that come up to me to say they like me in that.
Yeah.
I get more of a bang out of than if I've been in something that just was broadly successful.
I think though too, I would imagine you have a different level of sort of recognizability than I do, which is that with your relationship, you're in magazines, you have that whole thing where I don't have that. I've never had that. And personally, I don't think that I want it. It seems
Right.
like yeah. So usually when people come up to me, they really know my work and they're fans of it. So it's generally a really great experience.
Right, right.
Unless they're wasted. You don't want to be around a really wasted guy.
No. Oh, but I would imagine after Horrible Bosses, it probably got to a level that maybe it wasn't quite that.
I would say Horrible Bosses has not had the reach that Sonny's had.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's part of, I think Robin Glenn and I all have a chip on our shoulder about this kind of thing.
Right.
Which is that I think within the industry, there's sort of this feeling that Sonny is kind of this cult thing. Only a couple of people know about it. But I can't go through an airport
Right.
without people knowing me from that show.
Yeah. Even when I just said, isn't it cool to be into something that's not Friends? Is that triggering at all?
Oh, well, no. I think, admittedly, we're not friends.
Right.
Because I think that's such an international juggernaut and, you know.
Yeah. I can
Yeah, I
understand
don't
that going like, no, it's not my cute little fucking TV show, okay? A
Yeah, it's
shitload
the
of
thing.
people
That's
watch
the hit.
it. Yeah.
That's the thing. You know,
And
the other things are the little side gigs.
Right.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you dare.
Well, only one question about one of your movies. Ice Cube, couldn't have been a bigger fan of his in high school. Just knew
Same.
every word to every song he ever wrote. Obsessed.
Me too.
That's a unique thing to share, I feel like.
Yeah, and I didn't know really how to broach that with him, you know, or I was like, this is going to make you feel really uncool, man.
Uh-huh.
But this freckly little white kid in Rhode Island didn't have a car radio, so you had a boombox sitting in shotgun with your album in it, you know. No, I loved his music too. But no, Cube was the greatest.
He was.
Yeah, I mean, just incredibly professional and not overly friendly in a way that would be surprising, like, oh, you're a super chatty guy. No, he's still Cube, and he's kind of keeping to himself. But
Right.
that was a tough movie, though, for both of us, because we shot that fight scene. Oh, man, I forget how long it was exactly, but like 7-8 straight days of
Oh,
just
my
fighting
God.
all day, every day.
Ugh.
And
After one day of fight scenes, you're like so sore the next day.
I got sciatica in a way that I'd never had before. I couldn't feel my foot.
Oh, geez.
Like my whole leg was numb.
Yeah.
I went and got like a cortisone shot. I think Cube also got an MRI for something like
Oh,
that. with his
wow.
knee.
Jeez.
Yeah, like we. And
For
the
your
worst part
comedy.
of it, like we're not in great shape because we're not supposed to be as the characters. Like maybe his character could have been, but I'm certainly not supposed to be in great shape.
Uh-huh.
So that it was a physically grueling movie doing that.
Well, I was one time doing press at ESPN, and I'm walking across the courtyard, and Ice Cube is walking by, and he is obviously promoting something. And I really gave him my A game, and I could not get anything going with him. Not one thing. I walked away going, boy, what conclusion can I draw from
Did
this?
he know who you were?
I don't know.
He probably didn't know who you were.
That
So
would be
he
probably the best of all
He probably
options.
just thought you were a fan, and I think you went in there assuming he knew you knew who.
Sure.
You know, he knew who you were.
Yeah,
and he probably did not.
That's the most gracious conclusion to draw, really, because I'm like, otherwise he knows who I am and he hates what he's seen. You know, he finds me very annoying.
Well, you might have annoyed him, but but that's what I love about that guy. He's got that same thing with McElhenney, where he's like, he doesn't suffer fools. He does not
Right.
suffer fools, man. It was funny.
No courtesy laughs coming from Cube.
No,
For me,
if you said to him like, "Hey, man, I really like today. It was a good day," he'd be like, "I know."
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Hey, it was number one. So
It's like a great song.
everyone voted. And
What do you want me to do? Do a backflip because you like my song? You know? He was a funny guy, though. At one point, I remember asking him, I forget, like he was like drinking a Coke or whatever, or something like I was like, hey, you know, do you worry about that kind of stuff? Like what you're eating, whatever. He's like, man, here's what I don't want on my gravestone. I don't want it to say Ice Cube died from nothing.
died from nothing.
Yeah.
That's
So I
great.
was like, that's kind of a good outlook, man.
Now, did you ever have like a dinner with him or anything? Did you get that close? Have you
No.
been to his house?
No, not my move. Not because I'm above it. I think because I'm shy. And if no one goes out of their way to invite me,
Yeah.
I'll not ask to be invited.
Right.
So I've had co-stars, you know, that I've gotten to know really well, whatever, like Sudeikis through all the stuff, and, you know, Bateman. Aniston's had me over for some nice parties at her house, and that was always really exciting.
Yeah.
But I still, to this day, would not be like, hey, I'm going to reach out and ask if we can do dinner. I don't know, I'm
Right.
just shy that way. But that's kind of terrible, right? Because you're blocking off half your opportunities, because people probably think the same thing half the time. And half the time, if you're like, oh, you want to grab dinner?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Someone's just waiting
Sure,
for
let's
someone to
do
make
it.
the first move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mary Elizabeth,
Yes.
she has the same name as your mother.
She's not.
She doesn't. Okay.
She's a Mary Elizabeth. Now, this is a fine thing. That's a double name. It's a Southern thing because she's
Well, 'cause
from
I've al-
Mississippi.
when I've been around her, everyone does say Mary Elizabeth. They
Right.
don't say Mary.
And she hates it when people call her Mary. And I always feel bad for her because she has to go through life explaining that it's a two-name name.
Yeah.
But I also feel a little bit bad for the person because unless you're from the South, you know, growing up in New England, we didn't know that we were just going to start slapping on extra names.
No,
Like
no one
that's-
got two names.
Yeah,
In fact,
yeah.
you had a longer name that got shortened as a
If you got a-
nickname.
Yeah, right.
No one
if your
wanted
name
to
was
deal with
Bobby
that.
Joe, you'd be like,
BJ.
yeah.
No problem.
I was
Next
yep,
thing.
Yeah, there you go. Knock it down. There you go.
Okay, so it's Mary Elizabeth, so it's not the same name as your mother, but at the same time, it is the same name
Yes.
as your mother because it's not one word. In its totality, it's one name, but
In
there-
its totality, it's a name.
there's a
two separate-
space, though.
There's a space and a recapitalization. Yeah, you're right.
that's right. So the first part of her name is your mother's name.
Yeah, true.
She's a party. I just want to say, I've only been around her 5 times in my life.
Yeah.
Very memorable all 5 times. She's extremely cute.
Yeah, it's to the point where, like, I think we've been together so long that I let her shine, and I've just sort of like laid down in life now. You know, like we, you know, like she goes out and does her thing. Like when we go out to dinner, and sometimes I'm like, okay, all right, I better turn my spark on here. But
It's kind of nice, though, that she does all the lifting, right? It can be
it's
nice.
because I too am entertained with
Yeah.
what she has to say and think.
And you guys have been together for what, 16 years now or something?
Yeah,
2001, 18 years?
2000. We met in December of 2001.
Right, so
And-
coming up on
and
18
started
years.
dating like right off the bat.
And then you had a son 7.5 years ago, December?
December 15th.
Okay, we have a December 19th.
No, do you have guilt about having a kid like close to Christmas?
My birthday's January 2nd, which
Oh,
I'd argue is
my father's birthday.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I would argue it's the single worst birthday in the world because everyone just got partied out and
I'll-
they made New Year's resolutions.
I'll give you that.
No one's coming to your party, and if
no.
they come, they're not drinking or eating.
Even as the terrible son I am, I'm sometimes forgetting like, oh shit, right. And my dad's birthday is right after.
Yes,
and
there's
I
a lot
gotta-
of big events. You got Christmas and New Year's right
Yeah.
there.
You're burned out. You've just done the whole Christmas thing. You've
Yes.
bought tickets. You've flown across the country. You've thought of gifts for people.
You're
and then
exhausted.
Now you got to think of Dax.
No, not happening. I'll catch up with him in February.
Yeah.
Is what they think. So for me, there was the outside chance that she could have been born on the 2nd because it was only a week and a half away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, as long as she doesn't land there, I feel fine. So it's dramatically better than my birthday, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't feel too bad about it.
So far, it's been fine. 5 days in a child's life, or no, 10 days. 10 days. Sorry.
Days, yeah.
And a child's life is an eternity. So
Yeah, it's
like-
a year.
Yeah, yeah.
For us. Has your experience been like mine where it's just the single best thing or?
Completely has changed who I am on like a molecular level. To the point where I'm having a hard time. I think it's starting to just affect my life in general, getting it up for other things because I'm so in love and focused on this,
And fulfilled.
and fulfilled, and that means so much to me that I have to like find excitement again about the show business or whatever else it is, you know.
Mhm.
But I'm also practical in a time where I'm like, I need to have my attention and my focus here because he's 7 now. I probably only have him in the house for 10 more years, and then he goes to college or something at 18 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He goes off and does. He probably won't be that interested in hanging around with dad that much.
Well, you got to just say best case scenario. How often do you see your folks? And that's pretty much what you should be expecting. And when you do that, it gets real heartbreaking.
I'm not going to let that happen.
Oh, we all think
I'm going to fucking follow that kid.
But I wondered, like, all the things you're saying, which I find very inspiring and aspirational as far as focusing on the process, just loving the work, all these things, money seems right size. I'm wondering, I've gotten to a very similar place. It's been a long road for me, but certainly the kids are the most important piece to decoding that whole thing for me, which is
puts it all in perspective.
1,000%.
It's a useful tool in terms of getting out of the total narcissism that is having a career in show business, because you have to focus on yourself as an actor. Yourself is your tool. You know, your tool isn't the software you're building, it's yourself.
Right.
You have to think about yourself.
How you look, how you sound.
And even directing, if you're starring in stuff, you're looking at yourself constantly and editing. But
and to use your software example, if you build a software, you had better evaluate the other softwares to see if your shit's as fast as that. So it's like, what business wouldn't you be comparing your product to the other products in the marketplace? A bad businessman would be doing that.
Yeah, that's an upsetting but true metaphor, because you're right. Then you're looking at the other products on the market and you're saying, oh, God, that thing computes so fast. Why am I not doing that?
Yes. I watched Will Forte's fucking Last Man on Earth, and I'm like,
the greatest.
Oh, Shepard, kick it into gear. This motherfucker is so far out in the horizon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I try not to do that too much, because there's been a couple times where I've seen performances that I remember seeing Sean Penn in Sweet and Low Down, Woody Allen's Sweet and Low Down. I saw it in the theater when it came out. I was in New York. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. His acting was so good in it that I thought, okay, I've gone about this.
We have different
all wrong.
occupations.
Yeah. And it's funny, I just had, I think, wrapped shooting my movie that I directed, and I watched Roma, and I thought, okay, what have I done? Why? What business do I have directing a movie? This is what a director does.
I had the exact same. Chris and I went and saw the last Nolan movie, the World War II. What was it? Dunkirk. Yeah. And we left the movie theater, and I said, if we were both in Michigan being introduced to some people that aren't in show business, someone could say, this is Dax, he's a director. This is Christopher Nolan, he's a director. I was like, that would be the most unfair descriptor of us. I mean, we share that title, but there's nothing. I should not be allowed to be called that.
You know what? It's really important not to think that way. It's very important not to do that to yourself, right? We're our own worst enemies. We beat ourselves up in the most. There are certain gifts that someone has to do a very specific thing. And
I could tell myself Nolan probably can't direct a comedy.
Maybe not.
I hope not.
But probably can.
He probably can.
He can probably do a great job at it.
He probably would actually. It'd probably be one of the better comedies you ever saw.
It was scary.
Okay, fine. Beat yourself up a little bit. He's a great director.
Okay, so El Tonto. Can you tell me about El Tonto?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah. I wrote it 6 years ago.
Okay.
And it took me about that long to get it made. And I had this idea, and I wanted to make a movie like the kind of movies that I loved, like movies from the 70s, movies like Being There. It's very close to a Being There type story, where a character is wandering through a world and sort of being dragged through a story, like Mr. Magoo. So I don't know. I just loved those kind of movies. I wanted to play a silent character, something I had not done. I don't know if it was just reading too much criticism about my voice or whatever was in there, but I was like, hey, I don't try to do the silent thing. And so I'd written this sort of silent character that gets dragged through the story, and then nobody wanted to make it. Nobody wanted to make it forever. And I understand.
Well, as much as you are critical of your voice, it is the defining characteristic of your comedy. It's like, what is so funny about you?
Yeah,
you know how to use it exactly the way it should be used, and it's really your signature.
I don't hear it in my head.
Right.
I'm coming off sounding great.
Fred Astaire.
Yeah. It's crystal clear. It's James Earl Jones, man. It sounds good.
Yeah,
but,
perfect enunciation.
Now I accept it.
But yeah, so anyways, if I have money to throw at you, and I go, oh great, so you're not going to do my favorite thing.
Yeah,
like, you're Will Ferrell, and you're going to,
that's part of the
you're
problem.
Brad Pitt, and you're going to keep your shirt on the whole movie. No, thank you. Let's get it off.
Plus, that's the type of story that is just, it's not very commercial, but but those are also all my favorite films. Are I love great filmmakers. I guess a cinephile in a little bit.
Yeah.
To add a file. If we
Yeah,
wanted to
let's
get a
add
file
more
in the
files.
conversation.
Yeah.
And a bit of a nerd in that way, where I just, anything, I sort of hate to name directors, but anything the great respected filmmakers put out, I'm all over it. I can't wait to watch it. I'm watching
Are you
the
so excited
coverage.
about Tarantino's new movie?
Yeah. Interestingly, I got asked to audition for that,
You did?
and I turned it down because I was making this movie. Well, for two reasons.
Okay.
And I'll tell you. Primarily because I finally got the financing. I had the cast together. I was in pre-production. Most of my success in this business has been those leaps of faith that I took on myself. Like, I had offered to do a different kind of commercial sitcom when we were putting Sunny together. And I said, no, I'm going to do this Sunny thing. And that thing went nowhere. And, we're still going. And so I thought, I got to make this movie. That was one part of it. The other part of it was that I knew they're not going to cast me as this character. Should I say? Should I not say?
Say.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they had asked me to come in and audition for Charles Manson, and I'm like, nah. I don't want to see myself as Charles Manson. That's going to take me out of the movie.
Oh,
Right.
no, I'm looking at you and
Yeah,
I'm
kind of.
totally seeing it.
No.
Yes.
It would have ruined
I'll tell you
the
what,
movie.
no, it wouldn't. So what would have been really fun is if you would have not played it as a psycho, but the guy had to be charming.
Oh,
All we've
definitely.
seen is the fucking footage of him with X's on his head in prison, and we see him as the devil. But clearly he was charismatic and likable. There's no way he could have assembled a cult and not been that way.
True, and I'm sure when you're in the hands of a filmmaker like Tarantino, they're gonna get the best out of you. That's why everyone's great in their movies. A really good director sees your essence and uses it in a way that it fits. You fit into the machine in the right way.
And wouldn't his vote of confidence get you there?
Sure.
Like, even if
Of course.
if I read something, I'm like, he's not going to hire me for this. I'll go read anyways because it's him. And then he goes, no, that's it. I would start believing it, I think.
Well, I almost did read just for the experience of reading
Yeah.
with him or for him, or even if I assume he was going to be in the room, but maybe he wasn't, just to have that experience, because who wouldn't want to meet Tarantino? But the other side of me was like, no, you're making your thing.
And then you're just going to get into situations even harder. So it was hard enough to turn down the audition. What about now if he really wants you? Now you've got a real Sophie's
That would have
choice.
ruined everything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted me, I would have done it. But
Right. How many days did you have?
24.
Yeah, that's tight.
I had like 50 locations, something crazy. It's a big story because the character gets dragged through all these different worlds, and it's
Oh, wow.
like a Chandler novel. He's going through LA and these different sort of subcultures, and you have to create these worlds and go to these great locations, and I just had to have it all so mapped out.
And so it's you and Malkovich.
Myself, John Malkovich, Edie Falco, Ken Jeong, who's great in the movie. I think this is some of the best work anyone's ever seen him do. I hope people respond to it the way. I mean, obviously, I'm partial. He goes really into a really emotional place in one scene that I've never seen him do, and he really nailed it in a great way. Kate Beckinsale,
Oh, wow.
Adrian Brody, Jason Sudeikis, Jillian Bell, Jason Bateman came and did a little thing for me really quick. Common. Common.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Common's incredible in it.
We were on an airplane with him a few months ago, and he unloaded a lady's bag for her, and Rob quickly said, that's uncommon. I liked it a
that's
lot.
pretty good.
It was real quick, right on the heels of it.
And Ray Liotta.
And Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
Did it give you anxiety to give some of these people notes? Like, what do you fucking...
Yeah.
John Malkovich, you got to go like,
Yeah.
okay, so
And-
here's the story. You're a million times better of an actor than me, but that doesn't mean that I can't
Yeah,
see
right.
that the scene needs to be a little different than what it is.
Well, you hope that the acting itself, that you've done the work on the page, they get what you're going for, that they're not going to come in with a choice that's so... Sometimes I just try to find the middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kate Beckinsale pitched me this thing where she wanted to have this, like a giant white rabbit in some scenes.
Uh-huh.
And I said, yeah, let's try it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm so glad I did. It's such a funny little thing when you
Specific,
get to that
weird.
scene. It's a specific weird thing. It's great for her character.
Uh-huh.
And Adrian Brody had a lot of pitches too. And I would just let him try them. I'd be like, okay, try it.
Yeah.
And some of them were home runs. And some of them were really funny, but not right for the movie.
Right.
So I'm usually open to if I have the time, to letting someone try something, unless it completely changes the character, like an accent that you're like, you can't do it like that.
Yeah. Well, the famous story I just can't believe is the Paul Thomas Anderson and Yeah, but what's his name? 3 names.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. They were on Charlie Rose. And Charlie goes, is it true that you guys threw out the first week of filming? And they like kind of look at each other like, are they going to tell this story? And then Paul goes, yeah. What happened was we filmed for a week. And then I asked Daniel to come watch dailies with me. And he said, I don't watch dailies. And I said, I know that you don't watch dailies, but I'm asking you to watch these dailies. And they sat and watched the whole first week of dailies. And at the end, Paul said, I don't think your character is working. And I just thought, where would one get the confidence to tell what is universally regarded as the best living actor that his choice is wrong? How would you not question, well, fuck, maybe he's right? I mean,
Well, fortunately, by then you'd already made Boogie Nights.
Exactly.
Well-
And Magnolia,
exactly.
you had a little bit of toe-to-toe.
yeah,
You know?
but still a very brave decision.
Yeah.
I could see myself going, well, fuck, we're just going to have to live with this choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of my shortcomings, too, is not...
I'm a little bit of a people pleaser in that way. Or
Me too.
Yeah.
Which is terrible for a director, can't be. But I think I have, I'd had at this point 13 years of experience managing actors, writers and props guys and whatever it is, costumes, all those choices that we make on Sunny, that I learn how to speak those languages. There's a way to say, okay, this is 1,000% wrong. I'm going to tell this person that in a way that completely does not, hurt their feelings, does not make them not brave enough to keep pitching me things.
Right.
You
don't want to stifle their creativity.
You don't. And oftentimes I'll also say, look, another thing I've learned is that I don't know anything. So the second I think I know something, it's probably the worst creative space to be. So let me just hear out this choice and feel it out, ride it for a minute. And then if it keeps pinging me as wrong, then I'll, or maybe I'll ask someone else. I'll be like, hey, the so-and-so thinks that this person should be wearing this tie. How do you feel about that? You don't have to be, you don't have to do it alone.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I think was always navigating that. By the way, everyone is coming to you with an idea. And so Rob and I have a joke where we call them ruins. Everyone's coming to you with these ruins, but their ruins have the best intentions. They're like, I actually thought it'd be funny if when the guy's singing the song, he sings it off key.
Ruins.
We're like, well, right, yeah. Well, technically that's going to ruin the scene. But I understand how you're trying to make your one specific thing very funny, but you don't have the big picture, and I would never say it like this. This would
right.
But you're like, that's interesting. Let's get one that way, and then let's go back the other way. Or you, depending on the person and everyone's personality is different, you got to go in there and say, I think when you look at the big picture, that's actually going against what we're trying to,
By the way, when you have kids, it's very, very helpful. You get really practiced at that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can't let them light something on fire, and then you also don't want to shit on their enthusiasm to try doing something. So it's like you learn to talk through having kids a little bit.
You do. That's true.
In a soft but yet direct way.
And look, I always was good cop. I think Rob and I, we play good cop, bad cop. And I come in as good cop, and he comes in as bad cop, and we get stuff done. But, in the movie, I was like, I can even play good cop. I can play good cop the whole way. Except for every now and then. Every now and then I switch to bad cop, and it scares the shit out of people because I'm always good cop, and if all of a sudden, and it's very effective. So it's a very useful card. I'm hanging on to it.
Yeah.
And if it's like 4 a.m. and the 80s just not listening to me, then that's when, hey man, shut the fuck up comes out, and then everyone's like, huh?
Right. Well, when does it come out?
It's not.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
But you've finished it.
I'm finishing it now, so I'm like coloring it and doing ADR and having all my music battles. But that being said, I will judo my way into getting everything I want eventually.
Right.
That's what I do.
Yeah. My thing with the music is, and I feel like you would have an upper hand here or an advantage over me, which is I know how to talk about shots and lenses and cameras and moves and acting and intention and all this stuff. Editing, I've edited, I'm good with all that. When it gets to music, I'm not a musician. So I have to try to get what's in my head into your head, but I don't have any of the words for it.
Like, I understand music, but then I don't want to come in and arrogantly be like, I feel like the viola should be more staccato because the guy's gonna be like, "Fuck you, fake. You fucking fake.
You
You
fugazi
fucking fake. You don't know shit about shit. Read 5 notes." You know, like, I don't know why he's got a Boston accent.
I almost felt Pesci-ish to me.
Yeah,
A
sure.
little bit.
Yeah,
Can you
a
do
little
a Pesci?
I don't
You don't
think
do
so.
impressions.
Fuck you, you fuck. And it'd be like, it'd be like up there,
was
right?
good, yeah.
Pretty good, yeah.
I'm a fucking clown to you or whatever.
That was good.
Yeah.
It's got to be pinched, but
Well, Charlie, thank you so much. And I think Rob, because I asked Rob when I saw him, I'm like, will you please get Charlie on here? And boy, did he fucking delivered. And I appreciate your openness
I was
to coming
standing
in.
right next to him. He's like, "Hey, can Dax text him?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But I feel like we didn't scratch any like major depth of
Your soul.
Let's crack something open.
Okay,
before we
okay.
All right,
go.
let's do it.
Okay,
What
well,
do
how about
people
this?
need to hear about?
How about this? What fears do you have about having a son?
I fear about dying and abandoning him.
Okay.
That's my biggest fear. Is if something happens and I die young and
What happens to him?
that I can't be there for him. Although maybe that's not actually what's behind it. Maybe it's just the fear of that I don't get to be there with him, because I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll inherit a lot of money.
Right,
Live in
right.
a giant house with a mom that loves
Yeah,
him.
but do you think that fear is a manifestation of your own fear that you might work too much throughout this process?
Yeah, there's that. I've been pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where it's starting to maybe not be healthy for me, because I'm pretty much only working or raising my son. I need a little bit. That pie chart's getting squeezed where I'm like, I need to stop working so much, balance this out a little bit more. Like, I wish on Sunday I could just show up and act. Like, that's the best gig. Just 2 months of acting, that'd be great.
Well, it's a very easy show to act on. I've done an episode of
yeah.
it, and you guys
Love your episode.
fly.
We had scenes together.
Yeah, it was so fun. Weightlifters Unite or
Ass
something.
Kickers United.
Ass Kickers Unite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ate paint and stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about
did
one of us
kettlebells.
ate a toad or something.
Yeah. You were cracking me up a lot because I was just genuinely a fan of yours comedy. And I was like, oh, this is very fun to be in a scene with him. Because you're pretty all over the place in a
Yeah.
very good way, which I like to be as well.
Yeah, same. Like,
Yeah.
It depends on the thing. Like, we just did a film noir episode, which is going to be great. And we did that sucker on book and hitting marks and very specific with where your head goes. And that was fun to work in a different way. I like that too.
Mm-hmm.
But the freedom of Sonny with those cameras pointing in both directions where you can just go and we can step all over each other conversationally and we can go down any lane and find something.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about drinking? Do you drink too much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did for a long time.
You did.
Yeah. And I recently think I got some control on it.
Oh, really?
Just with some basic mindfulness.
Okay. Like, what's the thoughts you have leading up
I
to it?
suddenly realized, like, I still want to drink. I still want to be able to go out and have a drink. I just don't want to be drunk anymore.
Right.
And I realized for me that was the distinction, was that I don't have guilt about going to a nice dinner with someone and having a glass of wine or two.
Right.
I have guilt about getting a terrible hangover and feeling ill for 3 days.
Yes.
Right. That's where the guilt comes in. Like, I've destroyed my body and whatever else it is. And
Do you generally, when you're hammered, do you say regrettable things?
I think it's something you can fact check this, but I think I'm a pretty, I think I'm a pretty good drunk. Like,
Okay.
yeah. I'm like more fun than I am sober.
Okay.
But I mean, occasionally, you go to a party and you're like, what was I saying to that guy? But
Yeah, sure.
right now, I think I have pretty good grip on it.
Okay, so so the sweet spot is you have 2 drinks at dinner, right?
Sweet spot is I can have 2 beers or 2 glasses of wine. If I have 3, I'm going to be like, why the fuck did I have that third?
Yeah.
But I now, in my 43 year in life, am just figuring that out. Like, it took me a while to figure it out. It used to be like, we're drinking and who cares? Let's just go. We've torn the Band-Aid off and like, but now I kind of realize, all right, these are my parameters. I don't know. Talk to me in a year. Maybe I'll be like, no, I'm sober. I'm in a program.
Well, I'll probably bump into you at a meeting is what'll happen.
Right.
But I
Was it alcohol for you or was it drugs? Alcohol?
well, alcohol for years and then alcohol and cocaine and then mostly cocaine really brought an end to the whole
I
party.
think that's the one that gets its claws in people and they can't like.
Oh yeah.
For me, thank God, it just never.
You didn't like it.
I think I'm a very anxious person. I like suffer from anxiety attacks occasionally.
Uh-huh.
Anything that's going to ratchet up the anxiety is not great for me.
Yeah. Ironically, it made me feel much more in control. Well, it just made me feel optimistic about the future, which was a nice relief.
Sure, in the moment, but
Oh, the come down is.
yeah,
I'd rather be in
that's
a
where the
falling
anxiety
elevator.
kicks in. Yeah. That's where I
yeah.
wanna be. Unfortunately, I really only dabbled with that stuff like a very tiny bit, and I knew I was like, "This is bad. This is a bad road for me."
Yeah. Well, then my assumption is that you liked weed. Did you like weed?
Well, I did, but then it's kind of a similar thing where it was like, I'm just sitting in a chair psychoanalyzing myself. I'm going fucking crazy over here. And I was like, I also didn't like that.
Uh-huh.
So, but I did enjoy being drunk.
And how do you come to these conclusions? Do you go to therapy or do you talk these out with
No, I
Mary
need to.
Elizabeth? Uh-huh.
I
Because
don't-
you feel to me very like self-aware and kind of mindful.
I'm a pretty mindful guy, but like, I think, I don't know what, maybe that's just luck, having a brain that can kind of look at the big picture of your life and say, I need to do this or that.
Well, also the job lends itself to that, right? Because when you're in a room and you're beating out story, you start really getting into like, why does someone really do that, right? And you just get in this habit of like figuring out like, well, the person can't just come over for no reason and then leave for no reason. Like, what are they after? And then I think it kind of it bolsters that wiring in your brain where it's like it makes you a little bit conscious of like, why am I doing it?
I think I just think more practically in the moment of like, should I do this or should I not be doing this?
Uh-huh.
Like, should I be drinking 5 beers a night or should I not? And,
Right.
For a good 20 years, the answer was, yeah, I should. Why not?
Well, how has parenting been part of that?
Yeah, and that changes everything. Suddenly you're like, what, am I going to be hungover all the time with a kid? And
The morning's miserable anyways. They're up before you want to get up. They have all these needs immediately. They got to fucking eat and they got to everything just starts happening like a fucking starter pistol. And when we are on family vacations with other families, at night I'm a little jealous. They start drinking, everyone starts drinking. I'm like, oh yeah, those kids' voices just got quieter.
Yeah.
You don't care as much. You're not,
How long have you been sober?
It'll be 15 years in September.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. But at night, I'm a little jealous of them.
Sure.
But then in the morning, when we all get up,
Mm-hmm.
I am like, not for $1 billion would I be doing this hungover because it's already miserable and
I think
it's
that's
got to be excruciating.
That's where I got to where I'm like, nah, I don't want to be that. Also, I don't want to be drunk around my kid.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to see that. And like, fortunately, my parents didn't really drink. I didn't grow up in that. Maybe part of why I come across as a happy guy is I do feel as though I had for the most part, a happy childhood. Like all our childhoods are miserable for one reason or another.
Sure.
But at home, Tom and Mary weren't throwing, dishes at each other's heads and screaming.
Right.
Like they were the good family and they weren't getting loaded. And
Yeah.
so I kind of want to be able to provide that for my son too.
But you remember, right, being young, I knew which friends' parents were alcoholics. Like, you know it.
Yeah, I didn't until later.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm oblivious
Okay.
a lot of the time.
Yeah. Again, I think that's an asset for just well-being.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think I just am a constant daydreamer.
Yeah. I think that's nice.
Someone starts telling me something and it triggers 50 thoughts in my head.
Uh-huh.
And
So do you think it's possible that you had ADHD when you were younger or that it's not
Yeah.
that?
yeah, it's possible I have it now. I don't know.
Right.
But probably not. Because I don't know if you're like me as a parent where when your kids are young, you spin out on every little thing, right?
Mhm.
So if your kid does something, you start Googling
Mm-hmm.
ADHD or whatever, and then you were reading about kids who have it, and you're like, no, we're okay. Not that people's kids have ADHD aren't okay. So I think in in my paranoid reading, I don't think I quite tick enough boxes for that.
Right. Yeah, I think I have a similar thing. I haven't done it nearly as much with the second child, but I definitely was like, oh, at 6 months when she would laugh, she'd start swinging her head back and forth, like kind of weird.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, Jesus, does she have,
Yeah,
I don't
so you're
even know what to
Googling,
call
like,
it, tremors?
Head swinging child. And then you read
Yeah.
like horrible things about like, yes, Sandy couldn't stop bashing her head into a wall for 50 hours. You're like, okay, right.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally normal, but also it's kind of my disposition to go, anytime something's going good, I'm like, I don't trust this. This is a little too good. Why is
really?
it so good? And my kids have it's been great, and I love it, and it's all pretty positive, and I'm waiting for one of the shoes to drop a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, it will.
It will,
Because
yeah.
it's life, right?
Mhm.
Something will be difficult to get through at some point. But
Mhm.
do you have this thing? I assume, where'd you grow up?
Detroit. Well, in a suburb of Detroit.
And so I imagine you were on your bike tooling around the neighborhood from what I've heard on the podcast, getting in fights and just,
Raising hell.
But being a neighborhood kid, you're out the door, out of the house. You're not going to let your daughters just leave your house and run all over LA, right?
I'm going to try to. I've done some stuff already that I have her riding motorcycles already. I'm trying really hard to give her that sense of autonomy and, it's
good.
hard,
That
though.
takes some courage. I read an article. I don't remember where this was, so this could be a good fact check thing. But there's some article where a guy was studying a town in Vermont, and I think it was in the 80s, maybe like our generation. He studied the kids. They had about a 9-mile radius from their home. They went down to like the town dump and to the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And, they could go about that far. Then it was like, all right, don't go beyond there. And the person went back and they studied those people's children, and they had a radius of their backyards. They were not allowed to leave their backyards.
Right.
But the town, from a crime rate and demographically, had not changed at all. Nothing had changed.
And in fact, there's probably less crime. I mean, just nationally,
Perhaps.
crime has been going down since the
Is that
70s.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
so there
yeah,
you go.
Yeah.
So we live in this culture of fear. Of course, it's a 24-hour news,
Yeah.
media cycle, whatever you call it. That we live in this constant state of paranoia. But I feel it too. I'm not going to get my kid on a bike and say, "Have a good day. Come home when it gets dark." It seems insane to me.
It does seem insane,
But I feel bad for it. I feel like I could in Rhode Island, but I don't feel like I could.
But
do it
again,
here.
another bit of data that's really interesting is that cities are much safer than rural America. When you look at rates of crime per population, the odds of them being a victim of a crime are much lower here than my town of Milford. I rode my bike all around. It's just a fact.
That is crazy.
It's safer in this city. Your and I's chance of something happening are much lower than if we were in rural America, which is crazy because the crimes that do happen here are extreme. They found a fucking head behind the Hollywood sign, when you do hear about the thing, it's pretty gnarly.
Right.
But again, there's fucking 16 million of us in these 3 counties. It's like, it's still way less than lightning,
Yeah, and the crimes in the small towns are extreme too.
Also, do you have a swimming pool?
I do.
Number 1 killer of children in America, swimming pools.
For sure.
Yeah, and I got one. I have the most dangerous thing you can have for a kid.
The pool itself is not dangerous. It's not watching the kid while the kid's in the pool that's dangerous.
Yes.
Although you hear horror stories of like we were all there and
100%. It happened to our friends. They were all in the pool, and someone noticed one of the kids was at the bottom of the pool, but they didn't know. And they lived, but they had to resuscitate them and go to the
the
emergency
kid
room.
lived. Oh, thank
Kid
you.
lived.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't think I could go on if that happened to me.
The only reason I could is because I have
It's 'cause you have
another.
two. I
That's
know.
right.
Yeah.
I've met a few dudes in AA who have stayed sober through losing their child. And I'm just like, not a chance. I'm fucking moving to St. Louis above a liquor store, and I'm going to go at it until I'm dead. That's that,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just can't. I'm that.
I think I'm not only will I get drunk and probably smoke cigarettes and all that, but I think I'm going to look into like revenge.
Oh, of
You know,
course.
I'm like, I want to take some anger out.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I would think that, and then I would just turn on myself. But
I have all these fantasies where I'm like, someone's going to hit my daughter at some point, and I'm going to fucking kill that person. Now I'm going to go to prison. I'm going to take their dad out of their life.
I heard you talking with Rob about that. That is an interesting thing. How you teach, because I have a boy, how you teach them to sort of handle that.
Stick up for themselves, yet not.
And my kid is weird that has something I never had where he's like the biggest kid in his class.
Oh, he is.
He hit some sort of genetic jackpot where
Wow, some recessive genes paired up.
Yeah, I saved all my good genes for him. He looks just like his mother and nothing like me, but like he's big, and I realized that he's got to wield that power wisely, but. He's a gentle giant. Like, he's a sweet kid. He's gone in a couple things where a kid has, like, hit him before. And I told him not to do anything about it.
Oh, really?
Not to, like, fight back. And
And I think that's the right answer.
And I'm ultimately glad that I did, because it wound up. But then he would ask questions to me about it, like, why did so-and-so do that to me? Why? And then I would say, look, sometimes kids do that. It's going to happen, but it's not going to make you feel good to retaliate. Although... there was one time, I think this last year, where he was kept nagging about some kid. some kid like kept like hitting him, and I was like, just hit him back. Like I was like taking the high road forever, and then and then I don't know, it was like late, and I was like, man, just punch this kid back.
Right.
And because sometimes that is the answer. But then immediately after I said, I was like, nah, I shouldn't have said that. And by the way, I don't think that he did or ever would. He's just not wired that way. But
the thing you're trying to evaluate is it going to be chronic? Is this a standalone thing and it'll pass, or is he going to spend the next 12 years of his life getting victimized? And when you evaluate it that way, the shitty option becomes less shitty, in my opinion.
Yeah. If that's truly happening, that's not happening at 7.
It's not happening. No.
Yeah. If that's truly happening, then you got to teach them how to stand up for themselves in a way. But rarely it's through violence. Usually that's going to. Plus I'm like, man, don't get kicked out of school.
Right. This happened to us. So someone was really mean to my daughter at school, and my wife took the time to find out that the person that was mean to him had a new baby brother at home. And she said, I bet Michael's not feeling very special, and he's probably upset about that. What if you brought Michael a present? And I'm like, we're going to fucking give a present to a kid who just like tormented
it's like a
her?
box and you open it and your fist is in it. Surprise, Michael. Fuck you, bitch.
Happy birthday, motherfucker. By God, they brought a fucking present to this kid. The kid's been so happy and nice ever since and felt
that kid
special.
Just learned if you hit a motherfucker, you're gonna get a present.
He's incentivized
Not
now
only
to
can you
bully.
hit them, but you're gonna get a big fat gift.
My wife might have made a serial killer out of that kid.
That's where that's headed.
But I was just like, what an evolved position to take. That's the last place my mind ends. I'm like, we got to get even. We got to set some boundaries. We got to.
9 times out of 10, there's a big picture about why someone's being a jerk or why.
Yeah,
but
hurt
not
people,
always.
hurt people. No,
sometimes
there's sadistic people.
There's shit in this world, and people are just doing a shitty thing to be shitty, and there's no great explanation of it. It seems like, I don't know.
Yeah. Was your tactic in high school to like buddy up with someone who was a badass?
Mine was to usually just make people laugh. I could make most people laugh. And then occasionally when it was like, that's not working, it was to fight back.
Uh-huh.
So usually there were times where like some bigger kid tried to pick on me, and it was like, oh wow, that little fucker just fucking kicked me in the knee and like bit my arm. And they're like, I'm not gonna do it again.
The message you have to send isn't that you won. It's that for all the other guys, this one's gonna fight back. So pick one that's not.
That's right.
Literally, it's that simple.
That was pretty much how I moved through the world, which is like, I'm your buddy, I'm your friend, and like, man, don't try to throw me in the bushes or put me in a headlock, because I'm gonna kick you in the balls.
Yeah.
And if you really piss me off, I'm gonna like slash your tires and find your baby brother, and
load up the '85 Honda Accord with a BB gun.
Yeah, that's right. Get in my Honda Accord and blast some Ice Cube.
Yes, Boys in the Hood. This shit. All right. Well, Charlie Day, I love you. You're hysterical. Man. I'm glad that you're thriving and continuing on. I hope you guys do 100 seasons of Sunny. And I'm excited to see El Tonto.
Thanks. It's fun. I'm going to get to walk home.
You don't want to ride home. No. I'm going the same way.
Unless
I'm going to go up to Los Feliz.
To drive me, just hang.
I do.
Okay,
yeah,
then
I'm going to drive you home. So this will be a first. I'm going to drive home a guest.
Home.
First.
Let me take you for a ride in my Chrysler Pacifica.
That sounds very exciting.
You're going to love it.
And now my favorite part of the show, the fact check with my soulmate, Monica Padman.
When the moon hits your eye like a big piece of pie, that's amore. Is it a big pizza pie?
Yes, of course.
It could also be a big piece of pie.
Yeah, but Italians aren't known for their pies so much. I mean, I guess pastries, but nah, that's more French.
Yeah, Napoleons.
Yeah, pizza pie for sure. So that's a stereotypical Italian song.
Yeah, and I sang it in response to having sang a stereotypical Asian song right before, and we knew that couldn't be included in this podcast.
No, because that's not nice.
Right. I'm allowed to make fun of all. Oh my God! I'm allowed to make fun of all the white people.
I don't want you to make fun of anyone.
Why?
Because
making fun of people is a fun.
No.
Why do you think it says making fun? Fun is in the thing. It's fun.
for the person, not for the person receiving.
Not the person on the business end of the fun.
So speaking of that, I was at this wedding.
Yeah.
And this person I haven't seen in a really long time came up to me and gave me a very, very heartfelt apology.
You're kidding.
Yeah. There was an incident years ago where
Friends were curious if you could do the generic Indian accent.
exactly. And then they ended up doing
Well, they
it.
were shocked you couldn't.
Uh-huh.
And then they went on to say like, oh, it's so easy. You just, and then they were doing it.
Yes.
And then they have since lived in deep shame over having done that.
They have. He was like, I've been thinking about that for years. So, and he works with students. He said like I would hear other people doing that to other people and I would immediately be like, you cannot do that. You do not know what that is doing to that person.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was so kind and sweet. And I, of course, was like, you got to let yourself off the hook for that because it's okay. And it didn't affect, it clearly impacted you a billion times more than that event impacted me.
But this goes back to what we talked about once before. I would almost think the worst part of being isolated for those things is not the being made fun of. It's the then having to comfort those people's guilt.
It's so layered. It's so layered because you don't like the thing happening, but then you're also just like, oh my gosh, I have to act like I like it first and foremost, so that everyone feels comfortable, so that you're cool too. You're cool with it.
And if you do say, hey, that kind of makes me feel shitty, now someone's going to be shamed in the moment.
Exactly. And then it's uncomfortable and awkward for you.
And then you're going to have to comfort them.
Yes. So you just have to like laugh and be done with it. And do your best to make them feel comfortable. So that it is a layered, not fun situation. It can be.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that happened. And then there was this apology and it was very sweet. And I hope he feels
totally free.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to hold on to that.
And that's where, like, look, each individual gets to choose whether or not they want to evaluate intention. I'm not telling everyone that they have to evaluate intention if they're offended.
Yeah.
But, for you in that moment, it's very rough. Neither of those guys were dicks at a party going like, oh, look who's here, and started dancing around. Like being, intentionally cruel.
No.
They were just out to lunch on how insensitive it was.
Yeah.
Because if it was a dick, let's say it had been a dick, and the person was trying to like make you feel different.
Yeah.
And then they apologize, you'd probably go, thank you, because that really hurt and it felt really awkward. Like you might give it back to them a little bit, right?
I would hope I would, but
maybe not.
I don't know if I would. I think you get trained to make that as little of a issue as possible.
Yeah.
And then because you also start feeling like, oh God, I overreacted. You start making it like, oh my God, now everyone's upset and it's because I overreacted.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Oh, geez.
That's a lot.
I got a little selfish during that story, if I'm just totally honest with you.
Why?
It just occurred to me, I was like, when's the last time someone apologized to me?
Oh my God.
Well, here's how it happened. I was like, oh, first and foremost, I was like, I don't know what it's like to be completely other in a situation.
Yeah.
So it started in kind of an altruistic thought process. And then I was like, someone does owe me an apology.
I've apologized to you.
Yes, you and I have apologized to each other quite often. I do think I don't feel bad for myself, but I do think when you're self-expressed, like I'm a leader and I'm alpha, no one's sitting around worrying too much if my feelings were hurt. Understandably so. Like I've kind of stuck out this identity where it's like, don't worry about me. I'm fearless and I can't be defeated. Right?
Yeah.
And so it comes with a bunch of benefits.
Totally.
And then one of the downsides is occasionally, and that's actually one of the times you apologized to me, is I was like, hey, Monica, I still have feelings. And if you are joyous when I lose, it kind of hurts my feelings. But of course you wouldn't worry about me because I'm projecting this identity where I'm not one that needs protecting.
That's interesting. I worry about your feelings all the time.
You do.
But I didn't worry about them in that case. You're right. It was a power thing.
Sure.
I think. Because in that specific case, I was like rooting for our friend
the
Molly,
underdog,
who at that time was like new-ish to the group. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
her to feel happy during this game.
Yeah.
You were
Bragging.
in charge of the group. So, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
were.
yeah. I said the thing. I invited all the people that were there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like I was doing that.
And you're right. Those are all reasons why it's totally fine for you to celebrate when she wins.
Yes and no. Yes, those are real reasons, but I should have been aware that you wouldn't like that.
Yeah. I guess I realized it the other day. Yeah, I actually was around a coworker who is also very kind of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have noticed a moment where she deserved an apology. And then I kind of could just see, oh, that person's not going to apologize because they're not worried about her like confidence, self-esteem, because they're seeing her in this very specific light, which is like a leader.
Yeah.
And it just crossed my mind. I'm like, I bet not many people ever worry about her and or apologize to her because she's such a force.
It's also what you're putting out, not to like diminish what you're saying or blame you for this, but like I'm vocally sensitive.
Uh-huh.
And it's something that like gets called out sometimes by you as like something to work on.
Right.
So
which is so selfishly motivated because I hate how I feel when I hurt your feelings.
Yeah, I know. I know that. So that's like the stance. It's like I am sensitive to things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the person saying you're sensitive to things, then it's hard for them to get turned around.
Well, I can say plainly, I can't have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
I recognize that.
Yeah.
No one's sitting around worrying about me. They're like, you're set. You got money. You have a good career. You're big.
Yeah.
What am I worried about? And rightly so. It's totally justified.
No, it's not.
But occasionally it'll just cross my mind. Like when I hear that story, I just try to imagine someone coming up to me and saying, I feel so bad.
Yeah.
I don't think I've had that experience.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about your feelings a lot on our trip.
In Temecula.
Yeah, we just went on a big group friend trip.
An amazing
It was
blast.
So fun.
Yeah.
I'm so sad to not be there still.
Me too, yeah.
We had so much fun. But there was a couple moments on that trip where I felt like, everyone was drinking a lot.
Uh-huh.
And I just started to feel like this isn't nice to be doing.
Oh, no, that never bothers me.
I know it doesn't, but
Yeah.
even though I know it doesn't.
I'd feel way worse if people weren't doing what they want to do for my sake. Being never wanting to be a drag on somebody. That would be a lot more painful
I
for
know,
me.
but also, I don't know. I just felt like, specifically on this one for some reason. So I was like, everyone's drinking and drunk and what? Like, and then Dax is just standing there and this can't be fun for this cannot be fun.
Uh-huh.
That's really what I was just like,
Yeah.
this cannot be fun for him at all. Anyway, I'm sorry your feelings get hurt sometimes.
Oh, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. Like I said, I can't have it all. I can't want to be seen as some way and doing all these things to promote that and then be bummed I'm not also seen as Bambi when I want to be.
Yeah. I
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to.
It just crosses my mind sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I have some pretty devastating news for Rob.
Uh-oh.
Not Wobby Wob.
Rob
Okay,
Mackle.
great.
Yeah.
Rob McElhenney?
Yes.
What is it?
So his theory about Mac and Mick
Oh. Uh-oh.
is, according to the internet, not true.
Oh, wow. This is great news for me.
I know. I'm
Because I
scared
really ate
to
crow.
say it. I'm
No,
kind of
say it.
scared.
Maybe you'll get a text from him.
I know. I'm afraid. A few different places said that's a common misconception. Because was he saying that like one's Scottish, one's Irish?
No, he was saying if there's a vowel after
Uh-huh.
the MC,
Uh-huh.
it's Mac. McElhenney, McEnroe.
Uh-huh.
If there's a consonant, it's Mick. Like Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger, just M-I-C-K.
Oh, sorry. Bad example.
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
Wait. If it's a consonant, it's MC, and if it's a vowel, it's MAC.
Yeah.
And that's because of Scottish and Irish, or why? Was there a reason?
I have no clue. I don't think he gave us
okay.
the etymology.
Okay,
of it.
then
Yeah.
this isn't devastating. Okay, so I guess he's right.
He's
'Cause
right,
I
yeah.
don't know, and I believe him.
Yeah. He's smarter than us, I think.
Well, I don't know about that. Did he go to a Unifile school?
No, I don't
Okay,
think so.
then
No.
I can't. He can't prove it.
Once you get that Jesuit education, you don't really need to go to an Ivy League school.
Okay, got it.
Got it. Mick got it.
McElhaney.
It would be Mick got it.
McElhaney.
But McSteamy, McDreamy.
Mm-hmm. McDonald's.
Yeah. And if it was McEasy, it'd be Mac Easy. If there was one of the characters on Grey's Anatomy that was easy, let's say it's a guy, he's really easy to get in bed.
Oh, okay.
He would be Mac Easy,
Okay.
not Mick Easy.
Okay. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, why was his name McDreamy? Because his name was Dax Shepard.
Oh, my God, he's one of my relatives.
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They should have called him McDax. Really confuse everyone.
So I wonder where they even got that.
Me too.
I don't remember. I used to love that show so much. I used to get all my music from there.
Were you more attracted to McSteamy or McDreamy?
Who do you think?
McDreamy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm friends with McSteamy.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted you to vote for him.
Yeah, but if you know my type
Predilections. Yeah.
it's not a mixed steamy body type.
No.
Although it's a very attractive body type, it's just not for me.
Right. Yeah. Too much man for.
It's a lot.
Yeah. I got you. Mick Steamy, whose real name, of course, is Eric Dane, is on Euphoria.
Oh.
Which I watched.
Yeah.
It's good. It is very frightening, but it is very good.
What is it about?
It's about a gal who, at maybe 6 years old or 8 years old, is diagnosed with OCD. So she gets put on medication. And then the medication, of course, by 15, she's an addict. She's been on all these different medications. She's used to feeling altered. So to get really high, she's got to do like really crazy shit.
Oh,
so
shit.
It's a real dark look at kind of high school addiction, sex stuff, male stuff, female stuff, pornography. It's good.
Interesting.
And as a father of two girls, it's fucking terrifying. Like I was watching and thinking, I wonder if Kristen could even possibly enjoy this, because this is about your worst nightmare of what your kids might be up to.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. But anyways, Dane's in it, and he's phenomenal.
Oh, great.
He is playing a creepy motherfucker, and he is good. And he's not creepy.
Good.
In real life.
So we were talking about Rhode Island, and you were wondering why it's
RHODE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to know why it wasn't ROAD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is road how you spell a road in Ireland or something?
There's a few theories. It's unclear how the island came to be named Rhode Island, but two historical events may have been of influence. Explorer Giovanni da Verrazzano noted the presence of an island near the mouth of Narragansett Bay in 1524, which he likened to the island of Rhodes, part of modern Greece.
Okay. Wow, it's got Greek origins.
Well, another theory. Adrian Block passed by the island during his expeditions in the 1610s, and he described it in a 1625 account of his travels as, quote, an island of reddish appearance. In 17th century Dutch, Een Rodic Island. Island.
Oh. Do you know what all these bodies of water you're reading make me want to sing? Can you guess?
No, just sing it. Whatever you're going to sing.
Well, a legend lives on from the Chippewa down to the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn stormy. I think I fucked up the last line.
Do you think it was gloomy?
When the Ides of November come early.
Oh.
With its load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmunds Fitzgerald weighed empty. The wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald.
That would definitely never have been the thing, I guess.
Really? Even though the big lake they call Gitchagumi?
Never heard of that in my life.
You haven't heard that song?
No.
Gordon Lightfoot?
No.
Oh, it's great.
What's Gitchagumi?
Well, the whole song is about the wreck of the Edmunds Fitzgerald, which happened on Lake Superior. And he is saying in the song that the Lake Superior went by presumably a Native American named Gitchagumi.
No wonder you like it and you know it because it's a Michigan lake.
That's right.
And probably the only people in Michigan know it.
No, it was a very popular song in the 70s.
In Michigan.
And, I used to sing it a lot in Michigan.
Yeah.
I used to sing it a lot in at karaoke.
Oh.
But I did it with the words of Piano Man by Billy Joel.
Oh.
So I'd say,
okay.
He's talking with Davy, who's still in the Navy and probably will be for life.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
It was a very confusing
That's
experience
so
for
confusing.
the listeners because they're looking at the words on the screen and I'm not singing those words. And then after about 10 verses, they might grab one of the piano and they go, oh my God, this motherfucker's singing Piano Man.
That's very hard to do.
Uh-huh.
To do words to a different tune.
I don't think I could do it sober.
Yeah. Interesting.
Like pool and karaoke are both things you get a little better at
When
after
you're
3
drunk.
beers.
Yeah.
3 beers.
Good thing both of those things are not important to life. Unless you're a billiards champion.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was talking about auditioning for Eurotrip.
Mm.
So I loved Eurotrip. I don't remember it being good, but I liked it because at the beginning of the movie, Matt Damon makes a cameo.
Get out of here. And what does he do?
He's a rocker or something.
Oh,
and he
yeah,
has
I
a
kinda
shaved head.
I remember that.
And
Punk rocker.
He's singing like a crazy song.
I remember that.
Now I forget what it is, but yeah.
That'll get you
So
through.
I was in.
Yeah.
I was in. Just like hoping he'd appear again, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And also, did Todd Phillips direct that because you guys were acting like he did? He did not.
Road Trip he directed.
Right, but then you were, it was.
He was talking about Euro Trip.
Yeah, and then.
I was confused.
Yeah. Okay, so he said that he thinks he's a good drunk and that I should fact check that. I wanted to, but then I didn't get to.
You could ask Bateman.
Let's text some people in the meantime, and I'll check
Add
back
that
in.
to the list,
Add it to the
Waddy
list
Wad.
of things to do.
Bateman would be a great person to ask because Bateman doesn't drink.
Oh, so he could be.
He would be
objective.
a clear-headed objective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he said he was talking about this article about this town in Vermont in the 80s. This man went to look at kids and how they play and like how far they go. And then all these years later, he went to meet those kids again and see their kids and how they were living. And, they only can like go play in their backyard, basically.
Yeah.
So I found it. In 1972, a British-born geography student, Roger Hart, settled on an unusual project for his dissertation. This is from The Atlantic. He moved to a rural New England town and for 2 years tracked the movements of 86 children in the local elementary school to create what he called a, quote, geography of children, including actual maps that would show where and how far the children typically roamed away from home. Usually, research on children is conducted by interviewing parents, but Hart decided he would go straight to the source. The principal of the school lent him a room, which became known as Roger's room.
This all sounds very PDO.
I know. I was thinking that too when I was reading this, but it's like also negating the whole point.
Yeah.
Which is like we can't. We're all
Roger's
so
room.
fearful.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this.
Yeah.
And he slowly got to know the children.
Oh,
Okay,
boy.
you're gonna hate this.
Okay.
Hart asked them questions about where they went each day and how they felt about those places, but mostly he just wandered around with them. Even now,
Great.
Even now, as a father, not that matters, and a settled academic, Hart has a dreamy, puckish air. Children were comfortable with him and loved to share their moments of pride, their secrets.
Oh my gosh.
Often, they took him to places adults had never seen before, playhouses or forts the kids had made just for themselves.
Wow.
Okay,
Wow,
you got
wow.
it. Not everything is.
No, I know.
You
This
know.
person is not that.
No.
But it just really is triggering for me.
I know. I get it.
I imagine letting Lincoln hang with an adult and let her show him all this. No,
You would never, especially
not
a guy. You would
fucking
never.
chance.
But
No,
that was
I won't
the
even let a guy
70s.
babysit my kids.
That was the 70s. And so, yeah. Hart's methodology was novel, but he didn't think he was recording anything radical. Most of his observations must have seemed mundane at the time. For example, I was struck by the large amount of time children spent modifying the landscape in order to make places for themselves and their play. But reading his dissertation today feels like coming upon a lost civilization, a child culture with its own ways of playing and thinking and feeling that seems utterly foreign now. The children spent immense amounts of time on their own creating imaginary landscapes their parents sometimes knew nothing about. The parents played no role in their coming together. the forts they built were not praised and cooed over by their parents because their parents almost never even saw them.
Yeah. I had shit like that.
I mean, I had tons. My
Yeah.
parents didn't know what was going on ever.
No, and I built stuff out in the woods by my subdivision.
And you weren't doing it so that you could show, like,
No.
that wasn't the purpose.
I had this whole thing, my grandparents owned that motel, roadside motel. And my grandpa owned also like a little professional building where there were like some dentists and shit and that. And it adjoined the property. And I used to go like on the weekends when it was shut down, and I would go in the stairwell and I'd bring these big pieces of concrete down there. And those were my speakers. Like I had a really sweet hi-fi system in this fake, I guess like an apartment in the stairwell. And my real focus was that hi-fi system. I had the biggest pieces of concrete I could find, because one big speakers.
Yeah.
And I remember taking my cousin Matthew down there to show him around like what my setup was. And he was into it, yeah.
Did you put your plant down there?
No, my plant was back at home. Yeah.
I know your
You
plant
know,
liked
it's funny you say
music.
that. When I would go away for the summer to be with my grandparents, I would worry a lot that my mom was
Not
going to
taking-
take good care of that. Because I used to put these great little fertilizer sticks in the soil, and you had to put them in like once a week. And I also put mayonnaise on their on its leaves to clean it. I read that was good for it. And I was like, there's no way my mom's putting mayonnaise on it and putting the fucking fertilizer stick in there. And I come home and it definitely looked sad that I had been gone. And I'd feel terrible for a couple hours. And then I'd like nurse it bowel back up and put the stick in. And then,
slather
the
in
saddest,
mayonnaise.
yeah, like let me also admit, like I'm painting myself out to be so tender towards this plant, which I was.
Yeah.
But I can also admit there's a period where I don't know what the fuck happened to that plant. Like I got to a certain age, I guess, where I was just like, oh, I'm over that plant.
Yeah, you grew
That
out
poor
of
plant. I hope I
Well,
planted it in the yard or something. It was a
It's
low light
okay.
plant, though. I don't know if it would have done well outside.
I wonder why you cared about it so much. Also, where did you read that there was mayonnaise, that mayonnaise was good for plants?
Probably
That is not true.
I bet it is.
I wonder
'Cause
if
there's,
it
like,
is.
protein in it
I have a
shit
lot
in
of
it.
dead plants in my house, and maybe it's because of no mayonnaise.
Smear mayonnaise, or I think I was using Miracle Whip mostly.
Oh, extra fat.
That little bit of zing.
Oh. So you would like go to the library and read up on plants? I mean, this is
No,
fascinating.
my grandmother, the other grandmother, not the roadside motel, but Grandma Yolis, who I fucking love, Papa Bob and Grandma Yolis. Grandma Yolis was a science teacher in high school. She had a double master's in science and history, and she used to teach me about biology all the time. And she had all these great books about biology and plants and dinosaurs and all that stuff.
Oh.
So that's really where I would dive into that when I wasn't pining over Danielle Fox. She lived 2 doors down. I'd only seen her in the summer, and she was so
Do you
beautiful.
think the plant reminded you of her?
No.
So that's why
In
you
fact-
wanted to touch it and
No.
put little sticks in it?
In fact, I think it's people like Danielle Fox that got me to abandon that plant is really what it was.
Oh.
Yeah. I was lonely. That's why I like that plant so much.
But why? That's
Because there
why I
were
don't
5
think you have
fucking
friends.
kids. Because we moved into a house with 2 other kids.
Yeah.
And one less parent because he was gone all the time.
Yeah.
So I had one mom and now these other 2 kids, and I lived in the basement.
Yeah. But you had friends.
I did have friends, yeah, but at home I felt kind of lonely. I felt, I am very middle childy,
Yeah.
I felt kind of left out. I'm sorry, Mom. That would break her heart.
Yeah. She owes you an apology.
She bought me that plant, though. I got to thank her for that.
Okay, so through his maps, Hart discovered broad patterns between 2nd and 3rd grade, for instance. The children's free range, the distance they were allowed to travel away from home without checking in first, tended to expand significantly because they were permitted to ride bikes alone to a friend's house or to a ball field. By 5th grade, the boys especially gained a dramatic new freedom and could go pretty much wherever they wanted without checking in at all. The girls were more restricted because they often helped their mom with chores or errands. Ugh.
And had vaginas.
Yeah, and had periods, or stayed behind to look after younger siblings.
Also, girls shouldn't be out once they get their period because wild animals are attracted to it.
Yeah,
So they get attacked by
flies.
bears and flies. Yeah.
In 2004, Hart returned to the same town to do a follow-up study. His aim was to reconnect with any kids he had written about who still lived within 100 miles of the town and see how they were raising their own children. But from the first day he arrived, he knew he would never be able to do the research in the same way. Hart started at the house of a boy he'd known, now a father, and asked whether he could talk to his son outside. The mother said they could go in the backyard, but she followed them, always staying about 200 yards behind them. Hart didn't get the sense that the parents were suspicious of him, more that they'd gotten used to the idea of always being close to their children and didn't like them going off. He realized that this time around he could get to the children only through the adults. Even the kids didn't seem that interested in talking to him alone. They got plenty of adult attention already. They were so used to having their lives organized by their parents. Meanwhile, the new principal at the school said he didn't want Hart doing any research there because it was not
Because it was very PDO.
because it was not directly related to the curriculum. And
And a big red flag.
yeah. At one point, Hart tracked down Sylvia, one of the girls he'd filmed at the River House. Wait, I'll just skip this part.
Filmed at the River House. This is...
No, there's a documentary. That's why.
okay.
Hold on. I don't think we need to talk
I mean,
about
this reads,
Sylvia.
if you were telling me a story about a
know.
pedophile, it would be the exact same story.
I know,
He
but
filmed at the lake house
no.
where he went with her often.
No.
Oh.
No.
It's a real shame. It's a shame that the fucking, whatever it is, 10% of the population that's pedophiles, that they really have ruined it for all adults.
Yeah.
That's the shitty part of this whole thing. Would you be in favor if there was a genetic marker for pedophilia?
Why are you calling it that? Now you read that's what you're supposed to say?
Well, you know what's funny?
What's
My
happening?
dad's girlfriend, Edie, who was very, very smart, and she was a teacher, she said it is a long E because there's a D and then two vowels after. I always said pedophile,
This is another Mac.
but it is pedophilia. It's not pedophilia. I think it is pedophilia.
I don't think so.
Okay. I think it is.
If it was pedophilia, it would be two E's
No, because
or an EA.
No, anytime there's a vowel after a consonant, that makes the vowel before the consonant long.
No.
Yes.
Medical.
Pete.
Medical.
Medical.
Nope.
You're right. There are exceptions. That's why English fucking sucks.
I don't think, yeah.
You don't think
I
English
don't think
sucks?
that's a rule at all. I'm sorry, Edie.
How do you, hold on one second. How do you pronounce pedophile?
Also, maybe it's
Didn't
British.
catch that. Try again. That's not a good sign for me. How do you spell pedophile? Oh, fuck, it came right up.
Also-
All right, let's see. Here we go.
Pedophile.
So pedophile says pedophile, but I want to say pedophilia. How to pronounce pedophilia?
Pedophilia.
Pedophilia.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay, anywho.
Yeah.
This is
Well,
also-
2 hours later.
So, pedophilia, a genetic marker.
Oh, if there was a genetic marker for pedophilia,
Mm-hmm.
would you think those people should have a scarlet letter? Should they be identified by our population?
Oof.
This is going to be one of the rare examples where I will abandon my libertarian individual rights thing and go
Collective
group
good.
collective good. And only because the victims are children. If the victims were adult, for
That's
some reason,
true.
it would make, I wouldn't probably, like if
That's
someone had a
true.
genetic marker to be a murderer, I don't know that I would make that happen.
That's true.
But because
But
it's kids,
also,
I
what
would.
if they, like that tarred and feathered episode of This
They
American
overcome
Life? Yeah, that they know it. Like, you know what I wish? If there was a genetic marker, I wish that it was a law that everyone get tested for that
Mhm.
so that you, at least yourself, knew.
Okay, how about this?
Okay.
Libertarians would still hate this, but you're identified at birth as one.
Okay.
You're not told to the community, but you do enter a system and you have to be checked on. And you have to go through classes and you have to, you have to have a whole bunch of prevention.
Yeah. That's
And you're tracked, and if you
But
don't
getting
check in,
checked on, I don't know. That feels so prison. Like, I don't know. I mean, definitely, I think classes or
but you are offering them. So it sounds terrible at first, like, oh fuck, I was born with this thing, and now I got to go to all these classes and be monitored by the government. But the alternative is completely unchecked, and you do victimize kids, and then you end up in prison. So this one thing could prevent you from
Right.
spending your
No.
life in prison or killed by me. This is juicy.
But what if you're a murderer?
Mm-hmm. Genetic
Like, is there
marker for
such a
murder.
thing as a murderer who doesn't actually end up murdering? Like someone who wants to and almost does, but then doesn't.
Well, I think so many murders are circumstantial. It's like someone finds their wife in bed with another man.
Right.
Someone, these fucked up guys who kill girls who they're obsessed with because they got broken up with, right? They're like circumstantial. Whereas pedophilia, I don't think is circumstantial at all. I don't think, like, I'm never going to be with a kid and be like, give this a go.
Ew.
Never going to happen.
Yeah, no. But what about the people who are actively not acting on it, I guess?
But how many are there? In a
Not
utopian
very
society,
many.
there would be no shame attached to it. It'd be like, oh, fuck, you got born with that, like diabetes,
Yeah.
like diabetes. But hey, here's part of it. It's just that you got to take insulin. You got to take this. We're not going to
Yeah.
shame you about it, but like this is what's up.
Right, but how could also you not shame? Like they're
This is a
gonna-
utopian society.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because none of them have ever done it anymore. It's like
Right.
100 years past the program.
Yeah.
And so they're just identified as that. They never do it because the system works so good that we've
Yeah.
devised,
Okay.
be it castration or some other
Oh
method.
God.
I'm gonna draw legislation up that when we get the genetic marker, unfortunately, it's probably not a genetic marker.
No.
It's probably-
And also what, you're gonna do the class thing or you're gonna castration?
Well, first of all, I'd need to know if castration works. Because if castration worked, let's say it did. Let's say when you catch someone that's guilty of pedophilia, that you castrate them and they never do it again, 1,000% take their balls. Not even a question for me. Taking someone's balls versus another child being a victim and ruining their whole fucking life and they're an addict and all that shit. Yes, I'm sorry. You don't have balls. Bummer.
I don't know.
Would you rather?
No, you can't do that. Would you rather? That's not fair. Obviously, I
That's
don't
kind of
want
what this
children.
conversation is.
No, it's not. I mean, I don't think maiming a human is an option. I think you can put them in jail.
I'll use a different example that's less inflammatory.
Okay.
I am against torture from prisoners of war, but not because ethically I don't think it would be worth it if they gave you good information. The fact that they don't give you good information, which has been proven time and time again, to me says, well, now you're just injuring and harming someone for no fucking reason. But if torture actually got the leaders of Al-Qaeda, I would go, yes. I would way rather have one human being tortured than thousands get killed. Very utilitarian in that way. So I look at the balls the same way. If it really ended the cycle of pedophilia, yes, take the balls.
That's also a kid you're hurting.
Well, being an adult, but yeah.
No, if we're talking about genetic markers, you know when they're children.
Oh,
you
right.
know, you
you're
do it when
saying-
they were a kid.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about castrating them as a kid.
And then they're...
I think you'd have to kind of leave their balls while they develop, maybe?
Why?
I don't you think it would fuck up your, like, your
Yes,
testosterone
I think all of
comes
this is
from
going
your-
to fuck up a person. Yes, that's
Yeah.
my point. I don't
Okay.
think anyone could be normal after that or even try to be normal. I don't think
Well, I have a vasectomy and I'm pretty normal.
you're not all that normal.
Okay. All right.
No.
I don't know. Again, we don't know if castration works. We got to find that out.
Okay, we'll find
Wobby
out.
wop. We're going to have a 3-hour episode where we go through all these things.
Yeah. So among this new set of kids, the free range is fairly limited. They don't roam all that far from home and they don't seem to want to. Hart talked with a law enforcement officer in the area who said that there weren't all that many transients and that over the years, crime has stayed pretty steadily low. There's a fear among the parents, an exaggeration of the dangers, a loss of trust that isn't totally clearly explainable. It's interesting.
Yeah.
And then you said cities are safer than rural America. That is true. In 2013, there was a National Geographic article. There was some study. And these deaths were caused by car accidents, shootings, falls, drowning, suffocation, and more. Injury mortality increased with increasing rurality.
Ooh, rurality.
Yeah, that's a hard word. Urban counties demonstrate the lowest death rate, significantly less than rural counties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're safer.
Yeah.
I should turn my kids loose to wander LA.
You should.
On their bicycles to build forts.
Yeah.
Not a lot of free space to build sport.
I mean, you're contradicting yourself a little bit. If they're out by themselves, they're going to run into like adult men, probably, maybe.
yeah, well, what's weird about that is, so I'm really paranoid about it.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, I very much believe that you can talk with your kids and get them good at reading people and their motivation. So I actually would kind of trust my kids to navigate the world, even though I do think I have a heightened sense of how many predators there are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
All right. I love you.
I love you.